Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the AC Building Committee meeting for June 23rd, 2023. The time is now 9:18 a.m. In the room, we have representatives from Downs Construction. We have Angeles from the town of Fairfield, Jason, Rodney, and Dave from the Building Committee. I have Chuck and Mark from Colliers, and our recording secretary today is Nancy. I'm going to ask that we stand and face the flag for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. We have a few minutes before 9:30 for Downs. So item number 2, we have no approval of meeting minutes yet. We're going to get caught up on that. So next meeting we should have a few get caught up on. So we'll skip that one. Item number 3, project update. Anything from Angeles or the town that we need to be aware of? Have none. All right. I know a lot of us are on a tight schedule, and I know 11 a.m. we have Bismarck Construction coming in that wasn't originally planned. So I'm going to make a motion that we can open up item number 6 for new business. We'll move it up, kill some time before 9:30. Do I have anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second by David. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? All right. New business, obviously, just today. Nancy is going to be our recording secretary for today. It's in person. Second, it showed up. And we don't have purchasing's not here yet. Can we? Yeah. Any new business from anyone on the committee? None? David, any new business? I'm assuming after this today, we may not need to meet next week or the week after, if I'm not mistaken. We have no business coming up then. I think the next scheduled meeting we'll hear from, it'll come from Colliers with us, know when everything's laid out as far as schematics and everything like that, and whoever gets the bid will touch base.
I just have one question for Colliers. Last meeting we discussed getting a high-level cost analysis. Where do we stand with that?
With the equals for the CMs?
No. Just the overall project.
Project budget. We'll get you one. I apologize, Rodney. I might have missed that in our conversation. We'll take a look at it and draft up the project budget. We're focused on the CM right now, so we'll follow up to that.
All right. Thank you.
Angeles, do we need to, starting next, once we get the CM on board, we don't need to meet for a few weeks, correct?
We don't need to meet?
Yeah. Do you think we need to meet for a few weeks? Will there be things to discuss next week and the week after, or do we need some time? They need time to get.
I think they'll need time to get on board, get them straight down, start. The chosen company will obviously meet with Colliers.
Right.
That straightened out.
We got to get the contract straight.
Contracts too, and we have to go in front of the next, whoever gets selected, make sure we're on the next BOS meeting, because we need to get that signed off.
Yeah.
So until then, for members of the committee, I'm going to assume we won't have any business for a couple of weeks, and I'll go ahead and cancel the next couple of meetings. Moving forward, we are in the town system every Friday, 9:15, in the BOE building. That's until December, and obviously we'll cancel as we go along.
Maybe shoot for 14. I can be in person now.
Okay.
So there.
Can you do on the phone?
So if there's the timing when we do it, let's get it in person there, and then we can come back and get to that.
I think moving forward, the meetings will be kind of short to begin with, because there's going to be a lot of approvals of whatever invoices. They'd be quick, so leave them by phone. That'll be okay, as long as we make sure you get, or whoever gets their information. I can tell you now I'm going to be away for 1 week in August on vacation. I'm assuming everyone else will be disappearing before school starts or whatever the case may be. All right, so basically the ground rules are 30 minutes. Nancy will give you a 5-minute update, and then there'll be time for questions and stuff. If you're under 30 minutes, we have questions to ask, we'll let you know. Can we start early, or do we have to wait till 9:30?
Sure.
Are we good to go?
Somebody makes a motion?
All right. Okay, so we're done with new business. I need a motion to start the construction manager's review on item 4. We can start with Downs Construction. Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion to begin item 4, Downs Construction early.
Second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the time is now 9:24. You ready? Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Okay, so, we asked for a list of 9 questions, and we shared a couple-page handout, and a leave behind placemats and kind of walk through. So I think, this is going to kind of be an interactive discussion kind of back and forth. So we'd like to introduce ourselves, and we're going to kind of run through it from top to bottom. Let's do it. From top to bottom, the questions, and we really, if you guys have questions during that process, please engage, and we'll kind of walk through it. But just to kind of introduce myself, my name is Tom Romanoli. I'll be overseeing all aspects of the project. I have substantial experience in the K-12 school construction, specifically focused in Connecticut over the last 20 plus years. We've actually just embarked on one of the grant projects for Region 18. We were just hired, and I'm overseeing that project, and we just started the design process there. But I also brought with me Jason Smith and Mike Delaccio, project manager and lead superintendent, who are working on HVAC renovations on the Hawley Elementary School, and also Mike involved in the Hartford Town Hall. So I believe that we bring a lot of very relevant experience related to HVAC renovation projects, working on occupied or unoccupied schools, phased or unphased, working with grants, working with the state of Connecticut to maximize reimbursement, also to kind of go through their review process, which, as you guys may know, is a little bit different than a typical OSCDR school construction process. This grant is new to OSCDR, and the administering it is a little bit different. We have experience doing that with Region 18. I'm just going to take a brief minute from Mike and Jason to introduce himself.
Hi, how you doing? Mike Delaccio, great to be here. Project manager. As Tom mentioned, currently we're finishing up the elementary school air improvements project. Basically, we're adding the cooling building where they don't have any. It's an unoccupied building. They had space for entire kids to visit school. During this past school year, it was finishing up this summer. I'm also working on the each of the town hall as a full mechanical and electrical upgrade system. But again, it's air improvements at the town hall. And again, that's unoccupied too. But as Tom said, we worked on many past projects. So personally, occupied day schools, K-12, growth, higher end. I think we bring a lot of lessons learned from the two projects we've been working on, and the two HVAC upgrade projects that we can touch on these there based on these questions.
My name is Jason Smith. I bring 40 plus years experience as a project superintendent. Started a running job in 1986.
This would be, I believe, my 11th academic project in schools in the public sector. Michael is right. We've learned a lot of learned lessons that he's gotten over the last 2 years. And these are very intricate, they're very involved and detailed projects. The outcome is exceptional for the student body, and we're going to make sure that in our process we're maintaining student safety, student learning, and making sure our impact is minimal to your school's process. Look forward to your questions.
What are some of those experiences learned?
We want to start right off the bat. I can tell you about third.
No, just a sampling.
Just the highlight.
Okay.
The high level.
Learning that your structural steel.
I'm sorry?
Learning that your structural steel
Yeah.
can be cut. So instead of having a design that's based on single span support for any new rooftop unit, immediately put in the option of splicing the steel. That became a big winner for us in what we did over at the school. That's going to be part of my question that I'm going to answer later in the presentation. But that is certainly one of the biggest learned lessons. Structural capacity of the buildings got to be known, and then the structure that we add to it has to be compatible and then conservative without totally disturbing everything else. It's surgical.
Another really important lesson learned, and Mike and I'm sure talked for a long time on it, is on these HVAC jobs, in any project where you have your existing structure, and you're pretty much ready to hit the ground running, the MEP coordination process is paramount in starting your construction schedule immediately. So we actually, on all of these projects going forward now, are promoting a 3D model scan of the above ceiling, existing MEP and the existing structure. We are promoting that our VDC manager works concurrently with the design team to pre-coordinate everything, not only in conjunction with the existing structural steel, as Jason mentioned, because then when they're in the conflict like that, we can hit it really quick in pre-construction, but also with the existing conditions and the existing MEP. Chuck knows what we're up against over in Wyndham. You know, we're actually looking at an occupied phase high school and we're maintaining all of the existing systems. In some cases, the new MEPs pass right past existing mechanical piping that at the end of the job ends up coming out. So not only do we have to fit our mechanical stuff in, but then we also have to be able to go get the other stuff out and abandon it. So in an effort to start your project on time, we would promote during the design to pre-coordinate the MEPs, and our VDC manager would essentially turn over roughly a 95% fully coordinated model to our trade, and that is becoming a little bit more typical in our industry right now, to work kind of side by side. And this way our teams are ready to put ductwork into production. We've coordinated where your VRF systems need to go. And something very important about the VRF systems, which is very specific to different buildings, because there's not a lot of ductwork that's associated with it. There's specific distances between the units that need to be maintained. And the lesson learned from that is we get the shop drawing, we look at it, and we're starting to exceed the maximum location of the piping, right? So our MEP coordination process is an effort to make sure that we have that coordinated, don't have to add cassette during construction, right? So that kind of leads us into looking at your overall construction schedule. So we based our fee and our proposal on a 12-month construction schedule because we knew that the project needed to be done by December. I think you guys had December 1st, roughly, right? I think the grant paperwork we saw originally was completed by the end of, substantially complete by the end of December. So we looked at it as if our world hasn't changed in the supply chain, and we can get this job done under normal circumstances and a 12-month construction process from December through the end of November, close out in December, is very doable. In addition to that, we looked at pre-purchasing, but probably at these particular projects is the lead time for the switchgear. Okay, that really kind of is the elephant in the room on all of our projects. How can our industry maintain itself when we have to wait, almost 2 years for the brains of the entire building? So a lot of cases we will look to pre-purchase the electric switchgear, and we also have a little hand-eye coordination with our design team because you can't pre-purchase it too early because the design's not done, right? So there's a coordination study that needs to happen. So somewhere maybe at the end of the design development phase, we can possibly pre-purchase the switchgear. So to kind of circle back on your first question, is the schedule doable? Under normal circumstances, it most certainly is. It is whether your schools are occupied or unoccupied. We would like a little bit of feedback to understand if your thought process is an occupied renovation or potentially unoccupied renovation, because your question kind of led us to a certain extent to think that you wanted to do this completely off of the school calendar, which would really mean summer slammers for potentially the next 3 years. Was that the thought process behind?
I think coming out of what we just came out of, I don't want any disruption to students' life, daily life, right? Having workmen in the school when the kids are there isn't the idea. Obviously, summer, anytime there's no school, any breaks, if we can discuss second and third shifts in these schools, I'm sure we can work that stuff out. I don't want any. I think at the end of the day, the people on the committee, it's all about the students, right? It's all about the kids. We don't want any disruption for those kids. So, yeah, you would think empty schools all the way, right? Second, third, and all that. And then obviously the Board of Ed is very understanding about if you're coming in, taking down ceilings during an active classroom. The kids go home today, and then tomorrow their ceilings are empty. I get that, but it has to be as least disruptive as it can.
Yeah, we have a couple of different options for that. But I would like to address, if you flip to the pages on Marquez, I think you're on right there at the upper right-hand corner. There's actually an excerpt from that great legislation that was passed. So, I know the paperwork says you need to be done by December, but there is a process where you can request additional time, right? And I think that the switchgear process is a reasonable request to ask for the additional time.
Have you gone through that, Tom? Have you guys gone through that yet in Region 18 to, talking with OCDR and those challenges? And if so, what was their response to it? Like, hey, get the feedback from the manufacturer first to substantiate it, like I would expect? Or?
Right. So we've had some initial discussions with them, and they asked us, to put together a complete bar chart. We'll dive into our Primavera process, and Mike and Jason will put together very detailed schedules, and then they asked us to get the information from our design team of specifically, which schools, because on that particular project, 2 of the schools don't receive the switchgears, 2 of them do, right? So get the information, and also what we're finding is the manufacturers have, they're all over the place too. Keaton is different than Square D, and Square D is different from Siemens. And then we've also had some experience where we were able to, in the pre-construction design effort, change the switchgear from a 208 to a 4E, right? And change the amperage. Actually, on our London and our Bloomfield project, actually turned out to be a cost savings and reduced the lead time by half. And not every project can sustain that depending on the equipment. You have to make sure you do that in the design process because the wire sizes change. So really, Chuck, to answer your question, we gotta get intimate with this process and the design team, and then bring forth to the state like the overall challenge, right? Maybe one school you were able to change to a 480, and 2 of the other ones you're not, right?
Yeah, you gotta have the details to say this is why we need to extend that just because of lead time and kind of a blanket statement. I think is what back to what we're saying, right, is give them the details, justify the extension. So we have no choice, really. The VDC, going back to the VDC and the coordination, is that all included in your fee during pre-construction, in your current proposal as it is now?
Yes.
Yeah, did you guys work closely with it? You know, this would be, DTC, no,
Yeah.
Jesse was, of course,
Yeah.
stuff, but, and then how do you guys pull in the owner, the client into that process? Because a lot of times it's happen behind the scenes. We get the end result. What kind of, how do you pull in, like Angeles is at facilities and down out here, but how do you, or do you pull them in that process as well?
So just to kind of,
That's a good problem to have right there.
We can talk about this stuff.
All day long.
Yeah.
So
we only have.
I just want to clarify, the expectation on the VDC is typically the architect is coordinating the 3D scan.
Yes.
So it's not, we don't have a 3D scan in our, the coordination as a result of that 3D scan, right? So in Region 18, the architect hired a third party to go do that. And we actually supported that with forensic investigations. We're going through, we're removing all of the ceiling tiles, we're cleaning up behind us, and we're putting all the ceiling tiles back in all of their schools, and they're scanning the outside of the building and the inside of the building. Now, once that gets populated, that consultant needs a little bit of time to do their thing and get it into the record model.
Yeah.
But once they do that, now we can start engaging, our
Colliers has that capability.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's just involving the owner in that process, so that scan, so we can upload it to a Procore and they can view it easily right away. Every week, we meet with that coordination team, we upload the model so they can come track our process, they can come join our meetings and,
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking about.
Being in our.
Yeah, and we like to start, give these guys a good head start. We get the ductwork first thing to go, but then we bring in the design team. Because there's always questions. Well, there's conflicts here. We need their assistance, so we bring them right into that meeting rather than submit an R5, wait for a response. So, we like to do that and bring it into the facilities. They can really see that everything we're doing, and maybe they have input as well. I mean, all this stuff is going to be above the ceiling, hidden behind walls, so you're not going to see it, but they have their input on how they want the boiler room laid out, stuff like that. Really want this.
Do we know if EO was doing the scan at all? Do we know that?
I don't think so.
I'm just, because I'm thinking
I think they were just doing a visual survey.
Yeah, so remember we were talking top of the wall conditions that one last year and those challenges we had. I'm just thinking if we did this summer, and the ideal time to do that is this summer, right? It's like now, so we can talk afterwards.
So forensically too, we have a staff of carpenters, laborers that we put to support the project as well. Or specifically, you mentioned top of wall, so maybe there's a top of wall condition that, as Jason mentioned, needs to be modified or adjusted because there's a new structural steel member that goes up there. We want to be able to uncover it so the design team can properly detail it. Or maybe there's some hazardous material or abatement areas that are just not available to get to, right? So we want to be able to open up those areas in advance so that we make sure that we're inclusive of all the abatement. So, and as many of the unforeseen things that we can kind of use our X-ray vision to forecast through our experience, with the architect's experience, with your guys' knowledge of the building and knowledge experience, we would look to wrap all those lessons learned into like a summer of forensic investigation to help support that. But in addition to engaging the full team, the one thing that we would be looking for specifically when we renovate and upgrade HVAC projects is the maintenance for the facility people, right? We typically would want to engage and make sure we understand how to maintain your system. so that you kind of know what you're getting into, before you see the final installation. You say, oh my God, how am I supposed to change that filter, right? So that process is part of our VDC approach, where our VDC manager to make sure that things are not only installed for code, but also are accessible for maintenance.
I'm sorry. So I want to go back real quick. I hear what you're saying. When we talk about potential delays in this project because of the supply chain, are you still moving ahead with your other projects, or is it been on pause until you get approval from the state?
The Region 18 one is in design right now. We're anticipating that we are going to move ahead. And we're going to meet with them, and we're going to explain to them what our challenges are and what the updated, realistic schedule is. We would move ahead with that project. And the schedule option that is not on this sheet here, from our perspective, is probably the most realistic to maximize the value of your grants and to minimize the disruption of your school. We're well versed and experienced in occupied renovation, and we actually studied one of your schools, and we have a logistics plan outlined here. I think this is North Justice School. And we would work closely with the administration to try to figure out where we can develop some swing space. And our approach is to not have construction workers working where the students are. We would actually make our access on the outside of the building, so our tradespeople would not be walking through our building. So just to kind of give a high level, and I know, Jason, if you want to kind of start explaining that. So I really want to touch on the schedule plan that we think is probably the best fit.
Sure. So what we can do is look at this and make sure everybody understands beginning the discussion. This is a first pass. The content, not what will end up being unless we get it right the first time. What this access is different sections of the building that allows us to separate with 2-hour separation all of the work areas. And let me add also that all of our workers that go into a school, they have background checks. They are badged. They go through our process to be on your campus. That's it. So the different phases, if you look at this real carefully, we look at the June, September, this large area, which is the northeast wing of the school. We look at this large area, and we're going to take that over, and at the same time, we scaled the classrooms, and we built 8 potential classrooms in the gymnasium, in the auditorium, cafeteria, and in the media center. We assumed that you'd be able to do media work in your classrooms. We also assumed that by taking the cafeteria, if you opt for this type of method, the students could eat in their classrooms. And that's a very important understanding. We will always maintain in each one of these phases, so we're in June, September, and then we're going to go in September, November, and October, November into the following year. We're going to keep shifting the corridors, and we're going to always break away from the existing space that we're in. We're going to reoccupy it, but that swing space is occupied by the next phase. This has 5 phases to it. So the June, September, the October, November, September, November, and then we would go October, January, and then February and May. And the last phase will be when we do the kitchen. We're going to come back and we're going to reestablish the media center, and we're going to do the cafeteria. You have AC in several of these areas already.
That's a lot of disruption for those kids. You're telling these kids, oh, by the way, because they went through that process, to eat lunch in your classroom again. And then you're taking away their media center, assuming that we could do it all in their classroom.
So again, this is just a first approach if we did the occupied method. And we understand the disruption to your students. We want to make sure that the education continues. They always have egress, and it's a conducive learning environment at all times. So by separating the areas, we can do that. But that's not how we have to do it, and Tom will go over the other plan.
Well, let's just say that this is the optimal plan. Let's just put that on the table. And then, when do you make these switchovers? Do the students go away on Friday and come in Monday, and they're in a new location?
They're in their permanent location. That would be the goal.
Yeah.
So we've taken them out of their space.
Yep.
And we're going to renovate that space to completion, working with your local authorities having jurisdiction. That's got to be stated also, making sure that all the mechanicals are correct, the inspections have been held, and then they will come back.
No, I understand. I'm just getting on logistics. You're working September to November in the gymnasium. And then the end of November, it's time to switch over and go to and work in October to January.
Yep.
How does that switch take place?
So the students would be identifying which of the swing space classrooms they would occupy. So we would give them that well in advance, and we would be meeting with their educational staff on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, and we would be updating them with those changes. So those classrooms that we're taking, and I believe that October to January, that is 4 classrooms and 3 kindergarten classrooms that we'd be taking. We're keeping 1 kindergarten class just in case you need to have that. So what we would do is educate them about swing space, renovate it, and then bring them back into their same rooms. But they be in those 2 swing space areas for that duration.
I think to answer your question, we would turn the building over, we would turn those spaces over, likely over a weekend.
Okay.
So Friday they would end their school day in the school space. But as Jason mentioned, we would be having those new spaces, final clean, ready to go, already set up, and over the weekend we would assist whatever the school administration needed to physically move the teachers to their new spot. And the intent would be to move them. If they moved out of their spot, they would move back into the spot they were permanently going to, and then the new kids would move back to another spot. And we probably have like an orientation meeting a couple days before, and, kind of make it like, okay, here's this is going to be where you're going to be going to school on Monday. And that phasing plan gets very detailed, very organized in our school board. We would have a very detailed logistics plan and phasing plan. You guys asked about how we would control off-hours work and overtime. Well, we specifically, our instructions to our subcontractors, we outline all of the requirements for work hours, that there will, on occupied renovation, there will be off-hours work. There will be Saturday work. There will be weekend work. There will be holiday work, right? Part of our efforts in pre-construction is to make sure that the DOA that you guys are going to look to be installed kind of fit with the appropriate phasing so that we don't have to breach our phasing and work off hours, right? Because that's just money that you're not spending on your program. We want to maximize the value of the budget and put it into the school.
But for the phasing, so because we're doing HVAC, we're not doing a full renovation in these, right? It's just HVAC. The logistics of the move, there's a lot of stuff in these rooms, right? Would we have to move everything out, or could it be like the essential stuff from that phase and leave, like push it up against the exterior wall or one of the walls to get it out of the way, covered and protected, so that we're not taking, desks and chairs obviously go in certain content, but that'd be a possibility.
I think lessons learned, it could be a possibility to keep the furniture in the lessons learned here is you're taking these ceilings down, that whole room needs to be cluttered.
Oh, absolutely.
So, we'll look at individually identify the swing space where we can store the furniture. But that swing space is important. And to Tom's point, we review these phasing plans very detailed with you guys. And the last thing I want to say is this is a major, it is a CFA, but we'll continue to do projects, and you can come look at them now once halfway through, one's almost done their major construction.
Oh, yeah.
You got structural steel going in, you can't have a student back in there the next day, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, now,
it's important to go through all that very good detail.
the students, contrary to maybe some opinions, students are resilient. Now, they probably think this is cool. It's the parents. And are you folks ready to face the parents and
We have a good neighbor policy, and that is something that Michael and I personally detail. We will meet with your parents as many times as necessary, but we do a very big meeting in the morning and in the evening so that all parents can attend. And in that good neighbor policy, we will educate them as to what our intent is and how it's going to impact their students, their kids, every single moment of the day. And that good neighbor policy is, people love it. Am I wrong?
And you see this potentially for all three schools, right? This is the idea, potentially for all three schools.
We would work very intimately with the staff, with the design team to develop a phase plan. As Jason mentioned, this is our first pass. This is us going through a walkthrough and just, based on our experience with very little, feedback. But a lot of times, once we start engaging and we start talking about the project, you'd be surprised where you can actually open up space for this. And this is the only thing that I really want to touch on is working only in the summers and long weekends. The reason we thought that was potentially the less viable option is because, as Chuck mentioned, going to the state and asking them for permission to extend the grant. What we thought potentially would be out to 2026. We thought we would potentially need 3 summers.
And that's time.
3 summers to get a project done. Would be a potential issue. So we were trying to look to maximize the schedule before we know the state can approve it. Okay?
Do you see, if all things normal, could it be done by December 1 of 2024, the original deadline? With no issues, everything's normal, everyone's rainbows and unicorns everywhere.
You're 2 weeks away.
Yep, normal policy. Could it be done by December 1st, 2024?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Well, and
you take this
But it's gotta be
year out and you do all the other pieces and you run everything based on the switch year.
Okay,
You make your timelines, right? So.
yeah, so you hit our punchline right there. So there's 2 things, right? So if we're able to revise this year from a 208 to a 480, we could probably get your job done in the time frame that you have, right? So we got to get into those details. We got to work with the design team and understand what those VOAs are requiring for college. But if we can't, then you're absolutely right. We would finish this job 100%. We would demobilize, and then we'll come back likely in the summer, right, to minimize the disruption. We would demobilize, and we would come back in the summer to put the switch gear in. And we think that's probably the best approach.
But that approach, or the magically everything was here tomorrow, is it's still, to meet that timeline, in your view, some sort of this version work phasing, or the summers breaks, maybe some components where you have to come in and drop, a viewing and a few evenings or something like that. Spot on those, not completely disrupting. And I don't think it's as much the parents have their frustrations. The kids do think it's cool. I often think when I just look at the more holistic learning environment and the teachers, and when they've got to fit and actually function from months on end, that's the part that kind of I don't like on this. It keeps coming back saying, can we do summers, weekends, maybe some adjustments? You're going to have to make some adjustments around there.
I agree. We have to take
That's what I really want to know from you, is your thoughts on that.
I agree. We have to take into consideration the people in that building. I get it. The kids think it's cool, but it is a huge disruption. Those teachers to say, "Oh, you got to start this year in your classroom," but we may have to move you to the gym, and everything's set up. So I guess to piggyback what you're saying, I'm assuming the moving costs and everything is in your original pricing too, right?
to oversee and coordinate it to the extent that we're gonna be on site. Our team will be on site, but as far as
Moving
the actual moving process, you know,
Right, like before, like every other project we do.
We'd be coordinating with them, of course. in
Yeah.
that regard.
So this phasing plan, we would review it with you guys. So if you say, yo, like, it's not gonna be, hey, 2 months you're going here, 2 months you're going here, 2 months you're going here. We can work it to maybe a 4 or 6 month period, or the whole semester, you know, they're in one thing, they come back for Thanksgiving, they're somewhere else.
But
Not
the
they're
question,
moving every month all the
right,
time.
the question is, will you come up with a plan that does this over the summers and the breaks with only minor other disruptions, not moving, but again, mentioned in the beginning, dry ceilings, it might be a day or two, something to that effect, you got an approval, doing that. Whether you magically hit everything tomorrow or switch gears, all the other, the core of the work. That can be done with that type of approach. Forget the phasing, forget blowing the deadline. The other piece is the state might come in and say, but build up paperwork based on the switching gear. Why is your new approval, because the switching gear was delayed, you're bumping over 2 summers. You can't do that. You can install switching gear with stuff, and then we hand you, but we want every other thing done. You got that.
That was kind of our.
Is that workable?
Yeah, that was kind of our point exactly. We were kind of looking at what the state was gonna do, but we can do it over the 3 summers. We think it would probably take 3 summers, 3 summer slammers. We could probably work some second shift work in the first 2, but we would really have to implement that. The other thing that we were very mindful of extending this project more than 1 full summer is the bidding market, and having a job that goes out to bid, where we're putting out the schedule and tasking the bid market to anticipate, escalation and labor rate increases potentially to 2026. And also, we wanted to make sure that we maximize your bid coverage, and we wanted to make sure that your project was as attractive as possible so that you guys could meet your budget plans. That's why we thought that approach with, just as you mentioned, getting everything done, demobilizing and potentially installing the switchgear would be the most attractive job, to maximize your budget. Because I think your budget anticipated escalation, but not necessarily escalation out to 2026. So we wanted to make sure that we were mindful of your budget.
All right, I have to just ask the committee. It's 10 o'clock. We have to give the same fair time. I'm asking for one. If we have one question left, Rodney, you have a question? Do you have any more questions? If we have any problems, questions, go.
Just a real quick one. When you build out these temporary classrooms in the swing space, what's the construction?
I had mentioned earlier, the 2-hour separation. So the first thing we do is evaluate the existing conditions. We have the fire marshal walk through, we have the building official walk through, and we make sure that our egress is maintained and that life safety systems that are.
No, I understand that, but what is the actual construction?
Like fabric wall or?
Oh, no, 2x4, it's sheetrock and subwall.
Okay.
I think you're asking about the actual swing space.
The actual.
The swing space, not.
So when we build 4 classrooms and you drywall partitions, we would depending on what the lengths were in there, maybe we would have the partitions go all the way up as high as they went. Sometimes when we build in the gym, we actually put a ceiling in, we drop lights in there, but that would have to be coordinated with the staff, with the design team, make sure that we had air quality was proper, the lighting was proper, so that,
And the only reason I ask is for quality of life, and then sound, sound transmission.
And also technology too.
Technology.
So that they can operate the way they would normally operate, because, as you guys mentioned, we don't want them to have a learning environment now that is reduced from what they were already experiencing. So we want to make sure we have that happy balance, and we want to have a level of expectation that we're going to put them in a room that is a good classroom, and then operate efficiently.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in.
Ask one follow-up before they, I think it'd be.
Go ahead.
Looking at the fee, okay, we have different scenarios here. It, roughly 12 months in the original, for that, looking at your different, it was 11 months and then it kind of sporadic. What does this do to your fee? Because when we actually bring it over for summers, there's mobilizations and stuff. And, when I look at your original fee and I like look at 12 months and, out of the GCs, about, I'm calculating about $120,000 per month in GCs. Will with the first two options that are consistent, is that going to change? What do these do with your GCs, relatively speaking, after a month? How would that get affected with this?
So I kind of looked at it just like you did. It was roughly about $130,000 a month.
Yeah.
We anticipated staffing this assignment with the superintendent at each location, full-time project manager, which would be Mike, and a full-time project engineer. The original scenario, obviously, is no cost. We're able, no cost upcharge, right? If we were able to coordinate the 480 switchgear and get it all done in the first year, there's no change there. If we have to come back in the following summer, then we would actually potentially look at reducing our staff, right? So these guys are doing a job right now that we're coming back this summer in Raleigh to do the switchgear, and we have reduced staff. So we have to look at that, Chuck. And I kind of looked at it and said, depending on how which job needs the switchgear, it could be $50,000 to $60,000 a month per school, right? Because we probably don't need a full-time project manager coming back to do a switchgear and top ceiling tiling, decommissioning, balancing, and all that stuff. So it wouldn't be a full $120,000 a month back for the summer, right? And we don't even know if it's right now, sitting here today, if it's going to be 3 months worth of work, could be 2, right? So I'm thinking like $50,000 to $60,000 a month. Maybe one super can cover 2 jobs.
So you're flexible with it.
Yeah, we have a part-time project manager, maybe we have our project engineer quarter time.
Yeah.
To do some of the closeout that was kind of like, left.
It's very surgical, these types of projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, just keep in mind that it's possible if we come up with that type of plan, that 9 months, depending on phasing and what areas we're able to make available, this could potentially be a 9-month project. So we're kind of in like the 9 to 12 month wheelhouse, and we kind of just backed into it based on you need to be done in December.
Sure.
We think we're going to start bidding in September. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
We would open the books there, show you what we have for grades, and I think you guys have a pretty good detail of the staff value that we include.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Good luck. Thanks.
Good question. Yeah, thanks. I've been there.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I feel like I'm giving an SAT. Hey guys, pencils down. They don't do it that way anymore. They do it on the machine now.
Dynamic. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
6 minutes over, so we will give a 6-minute Q&A. We'll add a 6-minute Q&A for everybody to be across.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Ideally, I'd like to.
30, because he's getting changed from the other board. Yeah, yeah. That's real. What, I just make them all go like that.
We changed them at the percentage of the same.
No, I didn't, unless I missed it. This is the one you had with before.
Show me a thought process with us.
Chuck, what else do people do other than sit with space in the auditorium? I mean, what about a trailer? What about a porch?
No trailer. portable, that'd be much more.
So I looked at it and was like, they didn't check.
Fire marshal, will probably take forever to come.
You don't think you need to get fire marshal?
Maybe I already.
But yours is already you're ready. I'm sorry, I'm not a committee member also. I'm not like, I would
You're gonna-
be aware
Well,
of
we're-
other
I'm-
options rather than, that's what I was thinking.
They're
Building
ready.
classes, different areas. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, of course.
Trying to keep the team creative.
No, but it's trying to push them on, how much are they thinking outside? That's not gonna work. So
Oh, yeah.
Ma'am? May I have your name and business for the
Gave them
minutes,
about,
please?
what, 4 days to come up with this, you know.
Oh, you have here, purchasing,
There you
right?
go.
Okay,
No, I think
thank
it was
you.
pretty, for a lot of time, I think it was
read
pretty
them.
well.
Well, they know the timeline, and they
Yeah,
know
the
the
first, I worked those are about who we don't want to do their overhead, which is seats.
Yeah.
Like, they're obviously open the same age as the little bit, I think it's.
You're living in there, realistic, you wouldn't come in and live on it. If you get one.
Oh, we do. That's what, well, hold on. Under which scenario?
If you go on a normal scenario, like you're used to pre.
All the materials are done, if I can do an occupier, yeah, that's probably.
How about, in this scenario, occupied,
Huh?
occupied with the.
Some last couple of breaks.
The switch gears is included there, and so, again, I couldn't guarantee out.
But you're talking about everything else.
With an occupied building, yes, you can get it done by December 20th.
Occupied swing space.
Or however high the swing. You know, we did these things in high school.
Well, no, summer the lawn break,
It's fine.
with,
So now,
your house swing space, but I'm recognizing, you know,
Easy yard.
shift.
And plus, you'll drive you're driving your cost up because you're mowing and removing and demobbing and remobbing. Every time a contractor walks off the site, it's gonna cost you money. It's gonna cost you money. Yeah.
So we gotta,
So what you're doing, and we're tight, like, yes, we're tight on budgets. So by doing that, you're increasing your costs fundamentally right off the bat. Yeah, right off the bat. And he raised a good point, escalation costs over 3 years. Sure. That could be, what, 15%? Think what's that value of the disruption? That's all it comes down to.
there's something, so next week, I need to have a discussion with superintendent.
The energy of these up here.
If we have to hit this deadline, we have to do it with kids in the school.
Well, so then the next question becomes, if you're gonna do that goes to paving, yeah,
Right.
that's the first pass at it. Can you do it without, day-to-day classroom? So you're gonna lose,
You're gonna move the teacher maybe once out, going once back. That's it.
That swing space will be the.
No, what I'm saying is can you, in the occupied space, can you do, APR, gym,
Those are typically,
put up a lot of those other spaces.
yeah.
But that's what's disruptive. Okay, you don't get the media center for the next,
Like
4
4
weeks.
weeks,
yeah.
Take all your books out now, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, you're not going to the media center. Okay, but your classroom you come into in September is the same classroom.
Correct.
When you all the way through. Because
You
you come up with a way
like
that.
Christmas time.
But I'm saying to avoid the classroom. The classroom moves are going to be, okay, you got to bring lunch, in the classroom. That's not fun, but it's not.
That's the big one, what the school's gonna wanna do, if they're gonna wanna do that or not, right? The cafeteria.
They're not going to like that.
Because these elementary
Because moving the classrooms is where it's like.
Their cafeterias are cafeterias, do anything for it, they do everything, the gym, the auditorium, everything.
But that would require kids to bring lunch in every day, when parents just, hey, I'm buying them, lunch.
No, because when we did that in Mill Hill, they would have the hot lunch anyway.
Okay.
When we did it, same thing, same as the Politan, we always had enough, they always had the hot lunch to give them, either for lunch.
Okay. So the kitchens are.
They're more, well,
They're more, you put them in formative of it.
Is it north, south, to the mobile? All these.
But I mean, if they're gonna be in the classroom, so it's just that logistic of getting.
Getting into the middle of the hallway, and say, hey, go down this hallway and get your lunch.
Gotcha, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and those cases, if you're in this classroom and in December you're gonna move out, and not back in until March or June or whatever,
Yeah.
versus you're always in your classroom, in your classroom over the summer.
Right.
All these other spaces are gonna be disrupted, but it's a very different type of disruption.
Yeah, the elementary is 75% of your work is classroom space. Yeah, 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 so. Not gonna be able to.
There's something that's trying to elementary, now they know it, that's gonna be hard.
The high school is a bit tough.
Well,
Yeah, not necessarily this one.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
We have those 3 elementary schools. I need these people to know that they're also into the high school too.
They just use this as an example.
But the high school is, are they aware they also have technically 4
Yeah.
projects?
No. So, only group is the,
Who's doing the high school?
yeah.
But that falls under us.
That's both of them, put them in, went up to the chief.
Ah, perfect. Then we'll have
That's not, that's perfect.
All right.
Yeah.
What's up tonight?
Yeah, these are just ideas in the team, and then so if you wanna buy this team, that's the way.
And then turn, oh, do you want me to bring them in? And then, Ronnie, you have to leave at,
I'll stay as long as I can.
okay.
Just,
Did we pause the recording?
No, I think it's, I think I have to.
no.
I think everything says is reason enough in that, I go. Can't for a couple days preparation and I know, man. That's what I would expect. What do I, yes, I mean, you know, we talk all the time.
Let Mark speak, let Mark.
No, but I agree, we try to dish off, you know, let the team take it, but. Sorry.
That's right.
But it is, I do think, if we can get the scans of especially like the corridors over the summer, we did that and, I think it was over in London, we did that, so we had to do it early demo phase, with 2 years. We took the sealing done, but there's some super clean, there's nothing of a problem.
And Collier will do that modeling on that 3D?
We can, we have the capability, we don't, it's not our people, we have that,
Cheaper.
Yeah, just go through and they can scan it in no time. Yeah, they can provide that.
So what's,
You bet, man. All right, gentlemen, good to see you, man. Good to see you. Wow, what's up, buddy? You bet, man. You know a lot.
Good. Mark Allen.
Sure.
Is that ever really happening in the real world? Because to me, that sounds like a bullshit.
It does.
I'm kidding, I am.
How are you?
Oops, sorry.
Oh,
Hi, my name is Mark.
and Mark.
Hi, my name is Mark Bellantoni. I am in charge of my room.
Mark Bellantoni, just the mascot.
Mark Bellantoni?
He was
Utility infielder?
He was the school mascot. He was the school student mascot.
I don't know, I can't pitch last night.
They suck.
Oh my God, it broke my heart. Why am I so confused?
All right, are we, members of the committee, are we ready? You have,
Yeah.
you have 30 minutes. She will let you know when it's 5 minutes by sticking her hand up going 5, and then we will, because we were over 6 minutes on the last one, you have 6 extra minutes. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So good morning. My name is Amar Shamas. I'm senior PX with Gilday Building Company. Been with the company a little over 23 years. My primary market sector is K-12, public school construction in Connecticut. We appreciate the opportunity of inviting us this morning. We're excited about this opportunity, and our team, we have our team here that's actually built several schools for the town of Fairfield, most recently in Holland, Illinois. So we bring you seasoned staff that there's no learning curve, ready to go, and hit the ground running. With that, I'm going to introduce my team.
Mark Valentine, the project superintendent on one of the projects, and a team of two other superintendents to go out there.
My name is Rob Koloff. I'm the senior project manager with Gilbane. I've worked at least four different schools in Fairfield. It actually was the PM on Mill Hill and Holland Hill. Worked with Mark on Holland Hill and Mill Hill, and I'll be the day-to-day construction contact between the team of our supers and our project engineer. So we do have a handout. On page 2, turning over to page 2 is our organization chart. And this particular chart represents our pre-construction as well as our construction phase. You, our clients, the town of Fairfield, done several school and projects with you folks. EL companies, design partners, we're very familiar with their operations. We've also done work with them at Maloney High School. We've done work with them at Fairfield University as well. Obviously, Collier's great partners, and we've worked with the several projects active as well as completed. We've done also the past projects with them as well. I'll be the lead person as it relates to the pre-construction phase of the project. And however, I will be involved throughout the lifetime of the project that we go through closeout with Jason and recall. I'm always in contact with him as well as Sal, making sure that the project closes on-site and all the closeout requirements are completed. So I'll be the lead person doing the pre-con. All of my continuity will remain throughout the lifetime of the project. During the pre-con phase, on the left side of the chart, you see the pre-construction team that we will have. We understand that you ask for estimates, pre-estimates, schematic design development, as well as construction documents. So we have estimators. Mike Parents actually is an excellent MEP estimator, understands mechanical systems very well, and has a great relationship with vendors. They'll be able to be a great resource for us doing the pre-con along with our design partners. Stephanie Green is our purchasing agent. She'll be involved in the procurement part of the project, and she's seasoned professional and understands public procurement very well. For the rest of the group, we have Patrick Lawson, obviously, and Mark Winslow will provide support as needed. During the construction phase, at that point in time, once we get through GMP, Rob Cole obviously will be involved during the pre-con, writing all the scopes of work and the bid packaging for the project, but he will also, once the GMP is approved, I turn that project over to him. However, I will remain involved, as I indicated earlier, and Rob will be supported by a team of superintendents. The superintendents that you see here all have worked on past Fairfield schools projects, most recently Holland Hill and Mill. Mark, Pedro, and Zach all have worked with them on these projects, so they're very familiar with this scope. I think one of the questions you asked is the team's experience on this particular scope. Pretty much, Holland Hill and Mill Hill actually one of the schools which is the odd one in the replica of Holland Hill. So we know the scope, we understand the HVAC system requirements, we understand the existing conditions of these schools, and we are prepared and ready to assist the design team in making sure that the design goes in terms of providing the support they need to design a project to its requirements. On page 3, one of the questions again you asked was, what are the project challenges and what are the project opportunities? I'm going to hit through the challenges. Obviously, we all understand these are occupied buildings, and we are very seasoned and experienced when it comes to occupied building construction for occupied buildings, and I mentioned one of the examples in town. There are 3 separate sites, 3 separate schools. We have assigned one superintendent for each school to make sure we have the proper coverage. There is no doubling up in terms of one super coverage to projects. We don't do that. We have a full-time project engineer for the duration of the project. We also have a project manager that's for the duration of the project. So we have 5 staff members to staff these projects. We understand and we're also aware of all the long lead items that would be critical to the project schedule, such as the DOAS units, the mechanical equipment, and the switchgear. Those are set significant lead time. Depending on the vendor who you're working with, I've had projects that the switchgear have come in within 8 to 10 months, sometimes a little over a year. And we've had projects that actually have as far as 15 months. So depending on which vendor you work with a T versus ABB versus others, they have various lead time. However, they're all trending about the 10 to 12 month duration for switchgear. DOAS units, which is the rooftop units, whether it's Train versus Daikin. Those have various lead time, but again, they are trending 10 to 11 months. DRS, more so on the, they're about 30, 40 week lead time. For VRS, these are the cassette units that you see in the field. As far as site logistics and access is another challenge on this project. Mark Valentoni will dive into that one deeply when he gets into his turn as far as project presenting. Trade contractors, bid coverage, critical piece. The market is saturated. We all understand that. So we have trusted relationship with our partners. We understand that the market conditions, and that's why we're actually contemplating on packaging all three schools as the one HVAC package instead of assigning one mechanical contractor for each building. And the completion of December 1st that you stated in the RFP as well as the questionnaire, that also could be a challenge because of the lead time on materials, particularly switchgear and DOAS units. We'll get into that one a little bit as far as the schedule. Material escalation supply chain, I think we all understand that situation there, and we understand how to deal with it and how to work around as far as controlling that environment. Opportunities. Several opportunities. Obviously, we have second shift work that we'll be able to implement and be able to get in there. Primarily, we have the summer breaks and as well as April breaks, so we'll take advantage of those. If there's opportunities as it relates, once we get into the design phase of the project, if there's opportunities for some swing space, primarily in the middle school, those opportunities will be explored heavily and be able to see if we can find some swing space because Mill Hill and Collins Hill were predicated on swing space requirements. So if we are able to capture that opportunity, that would be a huge opportunity for us. But that's going to be obviously involved as we get into the pre-con, sit down with the administration, develop a plan for execution to be able to figure out how we're going to take advantage of those opportunities. Multiple manufacturers, the design team will work closely with the design team during the pre-con phase to be able to document what manufacturers, what their lead time is like. VFDs are the biggest lead time, and that's what's really impacting the DOS units or the mechanical equipment lead time. So we'll be able to guide them whether to go with Train, Daikin, and others, and as well as ABB or Square D or Eaton or switchgear. So we'll be able to guide them to go to some of the manufacturers. Fortunately, this project, as it stands, it's really about mechanical and electrical. So the other components don't come into play as much when it comes to lead time. Alternative design approach. I know on the middle school there's unit ventilators, and there are options for the design to be able to work with the unit ventilator and have actually replace the unit ventilator with a cooling coil and a condensing unit. So instead of putting a cassette unit into the DRF, there might be an opportunity there. Even though it's the heating system, we take it out and put another unit in, those cabinet units, and we'll show you some photos of that. And obviously our relationship with the town and our experience with the town officials is Sal and others that really obviously have the fire school experience. So those are the opportunities. Page 4, on the pre-con approach. Again, being an existing facility, and there's going to be obviously a retrofit of mechanical systems and electrical systems into the building. Coordination and constructability is huge. On the middle school, it's a 2-story building. On the Osborne Hill, there's very little ceiling cavity above the ceiling, especially in the hallways where there's the skylights. So those are constructability coordination issues that we actually excel at. Because we've done other schools very similar, so we have lessons learned in history and being able to guide the designers through that process and be able to tell them, hey, this is what we did at Collins Hill, or this is what was done at Mill Hill, to be able to bring those experiences forward with the design phase during their pre-con phase, or the design phase. As I indicated earlier, budget, schematic design, design development, estimates that you folks asked for, NCD. Those are great milestones that we actually guide the design team as they produce the design to be able to validate how they're trending against the budget. Find opportunities, how do we control the budget, and what are they, again, those are great opportunities to see, and that's what those milestones are for.
And what was the short design schedule with it? Do you think we need to do all three on this one?
I don't think so, Chuck, because, you know,
I mean, we'll spend more time estimating than we are designing it early.
Right. This one here, I would say 2 estimates is a good one. One schematic design and then a CT estimate. I think the DD phase is going to be too compressed. The designers are not going to have the time to produce.
You're going to turn around and estimate again.
Right. So, yeah, and we can do trend estimate always.
Yeah.
We spoke about verifying existing conditions. Obviously, these are all existing schools, like I mentioned earlier, Osborne Hill has a 35-foot cavity, so there's an issue there, so we're gonna run ductwork around these buildings. What are the opportunities? Early procurement is a piece that I want to touch on a little bit as it relates to primarily the long lead items. And if there are opportunities, we'd like to explore that with the design team yourselves, especially the switchgear as well as the DOAS team. If there's a potential possibility there and desires, I think it was mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, in the RFP, is that we can work with the town as well as far as procuring some of that early, but however, all predicated on how fast the design comes up. And it is that once you purchase the equipment, let's say you're locked in, as well as the design locks that equipment in and what's needed. So there's opportunities there, especially for the long lead. We talked about long lead items and equipment, the material. Again, we're familiar with the long lead. Right now, VFDs are trending 30 to 40 weeks. The stock unit's about 30 weeks. VRFs, which is the cassette unit that goes into the about 26 weeks, and we built that into our schedule. Preferred vendors, we work with South closely. We know what in the town of Fairfield, we understand what they like and what they don't like when it comes to control, when it comes to equipment. So we bring all that knowledge and experience forward. Site logistics and shutdowns during the pre-con phase is huge. Again, pre-con lays out the net for the execution of the project. So it's critical that we get it right in pre-con and understand what we're doing versus just go out to bid and then we'll figure it out. That's not what we do. We dope it out. We develop a plan that's executable. And obviously equipment selection, as I mentioned earlier. So if you can flip to the next page, which is the project schedule, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Cole.
So what you see in the fall 2023 is that pre-con estimating and planning assistance that while we'll be leading and I'll be participating in. And then right around the end of October, start of November is when we really anticipate starting the construction phase, which is going out to bid, bidding, compiling our GMP, and then as we're starting to award contractors in that period is where we really kick off that procurement phase as well. So as we're getting bids in, we're trying to get in information on lead times, current lead times, what they're getting with their quotes for their bids for the equipment. And I think that was one of the questions that was posed to say, how do you track these long lead time items? And it really starts at that bid period, and then we really want to be really proactive with it and make sure that we get down into the details. So what we're doing is we get in the shop drawings, we're making sure we're understanding what their procurement process is as far as when the shop drawings are approved, making sure that they order their equipment, get approved that they're ordering equipment. And then we're taking their material procurement and breaking it down into different pieces. So it means, like for switchgear, for example, on my last project, we actually had to work through the switchgear design, modify it a little bit, which ended up giving us some efficiencies on those lead times by modifying some of the equipment selections. We were able to pull the electrical gear back in line with the project schedule. And then as we got towards the end, we had a certain item that was pushing out that wasn't shipping when it was supposed to. Leveraging some of our supply chain assets we have in Field as a nationwide company, we were able to determine alternate manufacturers for that piece that was missing. It's something that was pushing out until actually it was going to be delivered this month, almost early July. We were able to pull that back in, source an alternate part, and get that delivered overnight. So it shaved a good solid 6 weeks off the startup of power for the project. Some of that's like advantages that we have this nationwide sources and being able to proactively manage that MSL process. That's one of the key roles my project engineer will be helping with, is going through and making sure that they're chasing down submittals are coming in a timely fashion. We're getting that process through, and then we're being proactive and making sure that we trade our needs when that's necessary. Moving from that procurement phase, you'll see there's a couple of bars on our schedule as we are expediting the delivery of the VRF units. We're trying to expedite the delivery of the UAS and the rooftop units. And then what we're also doing, what we can jump right into, is some of the fabrication with some of the ductwork and procuring some of the more commodities. So things like electrical raised that we need for inside the classrooms for hooking up the VRF. And then some of that ductwork, we're able to get into what we can as soon as possible, starting in the late winter of 2024. So what we're envisioning is kind of a second shift
crew going in that starts April break, taking advantage of some of the breaks and then working right through the spring and into the summer, trying to get what we can to get items in place. Once the summer comes around for 2024, we're really pushing there to get as much material in place as we can with the advantages of not having the students and some of the staff. And then we're also looking to get a lot of the reinforcement necessary for the rooftop units put in place during that summer as well. So usually each unit needs some kind of steel reinforcement structure. You have enough time during the summer to really go and do that work, get that prepared. So that way, when the long lead time items will arrive, we have basically as much of the enabling work as possible completed. And when we show the JV at the end of 2024, we're installing the units on the roof. We're doing our final connections, and we're rolling into the starting of the testing and balancing. That's one of the having experience in school within the town, within the previous school. We have a good relationship with the commissioning agents at the town engages to work through these projects that they're using on other schools. We've had a good track record with turning over the 4 schools we've done in town as far as we have the seamless turnover where there's not a lot of contact there hasn't been very efficient. That includes furloughs for some of these projects back to the town. Any questions on the schedule?
Yeah, Chuck, when did BL think they were going to get the final CDs? Was it September?
Yeah, I think what they're going to indicate was September 30th was the turnover. That's what we plugged into our schedule. Just one last quick highlight. We do update the schedule continuously throughout the course of construction, at least minimally on a monthly basis. And that includes the lead time into construction activity tracking.
You are confident that if December 1st is indeed the set deadline, that with just second shift and during breaks and stuff, you're able to complete all 3 locations?
I mean, if you look at it, we looked at it from the spaces. There's about 25 classrooms per. These are all cassette units, so there's ductwork for fresh air, obviously. Installing, as long as we remove the ceilings and provide the space in those areas, installing 25 in each school is not the cassette units. They're just DRS that go up. We got line sets that run out to so that the renovations of the new work is not extensive, okay? There is condensate line that we have to run. The middle school has about 40 spaces. So the summertime is key to us to getting those units up. The early enabling work that Mark is going to speak about during the spring and obviously the April break, that's huge for us to start because we need to field measure ductwork, Jason. We need to fabricate ductwork. We need to understand what the existing conditions are. Otherwise, there are some areas that are going to be constrained. It's going to be very difficult to just, when you hit the summer, you say, all right, we need ductwork to be on site as soon as school is out. So that early enabling work that we speak of is huge because we'll be able to go in there because verifying all of what needs to be moved. When the summer hits, the classrooms are empty. That's our golden opportunity to be able to produce and to get into production. Not so much, hey, we got to fabricate ductwork. Shop needs 3 weeks to fabricate ductwork before you know that the summer is over. We need to basically have the ductwork staged, ready to go, BRS ready to go, line sets, which is our refrigerant line, all ready to go, and power will be distributed throughout the area. So 25 rooms, if you think about it, 25 rooms per school is not a huge amount of spaces, if you will. The corridor is the one that's going to be key. So that's why we're leaving the fall space. We're going to be second shifting in the fall to go back and line up, for example, the corridors. And we did it at Tom where we actually exposed the ceiling, hung up the lights, and turned the actual sprinkler heads upside, to make sure that we have the fire protection. So when the school comes back in the fall, there are going to be spaces, primarily in corridors, basically the ceiling is exposed because we're trying to button up, especially with the RTUs and the rooftop units. Those typically sit on top of the corridors, primarily depending on the design. So those are not arriving until late fall or Christmas. So we want to be able, those areas are going to be remaining open because we have to design all the ductwork, the piping, and control the power, obviously.
I don't know if that answers your question, Jason.
It does. Describe a little bit about your approach to coordination and survey of the existing conditions and coordinating with the design team.
Sure. So it starts at the onset of the pre-con phase, obviously. Our knowledge and experience, as I mentioned earlier, with Osborne being very similar to Holland Hill, it's a sister school, same designer, same vintage, same building. So we're familiar with that. We have historical information. So we will work closely with the design team, as I mentioned earlier.
How are you going to work with the design team?
Basically, I'll be involved. We'll go out and verify existing. So they're going to develop a schematic design once we're on board. We'll take that information and we'll visit each school and verify that is their design actually fits in the spaces. That's one. Is their specified equipment that they're thinking about is actually what's their availability and how they're going to work. And we look at the existing system because from a constructability standpoint, there's going to be issues related to electrical and other existing mechanical systems that we'll tell the design or plumbing system for that matter, those drains and other. We're basically done, by the way, this area is not going to fit. We need to shift over. I think at the Holland, if I'm not mistaken, there was so much congestion in the hallway that we opted to move the ductwork in the classrooms to be able to provide that raceway, because the ductwork would not fit, especially there are skylights too. So that's the information that we'll be able to work with them on that development. The other part of it is we look at their specifications in great detail. And we look at all the materials they specify. Sometimes it's a can spec. They bring in the...
Usually is,
thank you. Or sometimes they specify vendors that, like the controls manufacturers, they just send them their spec. Say, here's what we're looking to do, and they just give them the spec and they include it. We go through that in our experience with downstairs, but the board of ed as well. And understanding the town likes typically in some of the systems, some of the control systems, we'll be able to guide them through. We work with Silver Petrocelli, JDA, I know the other companies, I believe that's their first stuff. So we'll be able to work very closely with them to identify some of these issues.
Supply chain issues, you mentioned some of the dates. When do you anticipate, or do you anticipate pre-purchasing items?
A possibility that we'd like to, because there's a moving target on the switchgear, as I mentioned earlier. It can go from 8 months up to 15 months. That's a huge or longer. And, that's an item that I'd like to consider pre-purchasing to be able, however.
How about the RTUs?
The RTUs, depending which manufacturer.
Said they're 40 weeks out.
Yes, and that's, the RTUs are 30 weeks out. What's difficult about the DOAS unit is really the VFDs. The VFDs have the longest team, the longest lead time, and those are the ones that actually control it. So depending which manufacturer you pick, and it's cyclical. Fortunately, some manufacturers do well, and Daikin on some projects is doing better than Train. Train on North Branford High School was a disaster. It took them, they were so volatile, and that's how customized the unit is too. Mm-hmm. If it's their standard unit, then that's obviously that line, because they have multiple lines. And if it's a highly custom unit, cabinet, that takes the longest lead, because obviously it's their standard unit. That's what we got to design people. So selection. Let's try to stick to it, because we'd rather buy it with a trade.
5 minutes.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
After we
we'll get. It's 5 minutes on the can time, but you'll get it.
Okay.
You want me to put it on now?
Sorry. My apologies.
Okay, you have 11 minutes, not 5 minutes. Okay,
11 minutes.
11 minutes.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Good dialogue. So, again, I am Mark Ballantoni, and I've been on since Gilbane 5.5 years, and been here at Fairfield for 5.5 years. I've been at Holland Hill, I've been at Mill Hill, and currently at Fairfield University. So we know the schools, we know the project. And this project, although it's not the same addition and renovation that Holland Hill and Mill had, is exactly the same that we did for mechanical. We did this work, we did go as even, we did supplemental steel in the corridors, so we know what we're doing on these projects. We did the VRF. So as Amar mentioned, Osborne Hill is exactly like Holland Hill. Same entrance, same EPR on the left-hand side, kitchens on the same spot. North Stratfield, a little different, but also
25 spaces, including the gym. We also have the, rooftop unit for the gym, the cafetorium, which they call the APR, but we put cafetorium on there now. So 40 spaces at Fairfield Woods Middle School, which is a project I will probably be on because it's a little bit bigger, but we'll also have people over at sorry. So I get another minute? So we'll also have people, superintendents at each of the projects. We'll do a daily hub. Superintendents will all speak together. We'll talk about what's going on at, Fairfield Woods. We'll talk about what's going on at North Stratfield. And we'll talk about what's going on at Osborne Hill. So we will have multiple communications. So we also know what it's like working in occupied schools. Occupied schools have their constraints as far as making sure it is a school first. It is not construction site first, construction site second. We know basically we've gotten hard barriers in areas that we're going to be using during the day or at night. We've basically cordoned off any areas so that we don't allow kids or students or staff to get in there. We know how to take care of that. We fence off our laydown areas. These sites, we're going to have material on site. We're going to have things on the roof. We're going to basically fence them in, make sure that we are taking care of those locations where nobody can get into them. We also have a good relationship, as Amar mentioned, with the building department. Again, I've been here for 5 years. I've been down in Fairfield with a few stints and other places, but I know Mike in the building department, and I know the fire marshal. We talked to them. We asked them, what do they want? Do they want heads straight up? Yes, they want heads straight up when we remove the ceilings. As you go through and you look at page 10, you'll see some of the existing conditions that are at Fairfield Woods. You also will look at North Stratfield. But going further, you'll see what we did at Holland Hill and Mill Hill. These locations are what we did. This is what we're going to do with these 3 locations. You'll see basically a ceiling at Holland Hill on the left-hand side. That's a classroom where we took all the ceilings down. We took all of the whatever ductwork was in there for exhaust fans. We tied the lights back up, making sure they were level. The building department didn't want to come in and see lights hanging like askew. We took the heads, we moved the sprinkler heads, and we pointed them straight up. Because as you take ceilings down and you open up the space above, you now have to have coverage above. So we have those pointing straight up. You look at some of the phasing of the different, the Mill Hill and Holland Hill, the corridor, and I think that's what was one of your questions, is what are the constraints? What do we see as a concern? The corridor, based on a couple of the locations, because of skylights, and putting in supplemental steel to carry the GOAS unit, we're going to have to work on these and make sure that, we look and do our enabling work, as Amar mentioned, doing our prep work. So those are a couple of the items that we're going to have to deal with that might be a little constraint. And then on the far right-hand side, you'll see the cassettes that we installed. You'll see the new ceiling grid we put in. So those are the locations that you see as we go along, how they'll progress from the time we start to the time we get halfway through and the time we put the ceilings and lights back in place. So that's a few things that I've done, and then Rob and I work together, again, on Holland Hill and Mill Hill. So we have the series working together. Everybody on this, Amar mentioned, on this team will have had projects in Fairfield. So I will turn it back to Amar. So thank you for your time.
So I'm just going to quickly wrap it up and thank you. I think we're going
So I put your 6 on, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
6:33.
So stop talking, let's go.
All right, so the Gilbane Advantage, you guys know us. I'm not, obviously we're seasoned, we're top builders in the state of Connecticut for various types of schools, unmatched but with K-12 experience. We have proven project approach and track records. All our schools turn on time. All of our projects have been successful. The difficulties are seasoned group, as I indicated earlier, then all they do is renovations. So they know what it takes to get these projects completed. Our trusted relationship with Fairfield, the town of Fairfield, do a lot of work at Fairfield, inclusive Fairfield University as well. We have some of the great feedback of the Molly Farrell on our team when we completed Holland Hill. I think I've covered all of your 9 questions. There's a couple of questions that you asked, which was number 6 and 9, as it relates to contractor agreements, to bring in some excerpts from our trade agreements, and I have copies of that, how we actually own the schedule, and if we need to actually, how do we actually, ensure that the compliance with the schedule. So that's all written, and that's how our trade contractors work. As it relates to working shifts and Saturdays, everything's tied. It's necessary. Our schedule is written. We need to work on second shift. We dictate the second shift and hold them accountable. If they fall behind, there's recoveries that they have to show. So it's all spelled out in our agreement. And we plus ask for examples, so I do have examples here I can share with you.
This is your question 6.
This is your question number 9, so please take a copy and pass it along. Yes, sir.
Do we have a question? Are you done or?
Yeah, I'm wrapped up.
All right. So I'm going to ask committee members questions. Go ahead, David.
So I just want to go back to the timeline, and I do want to put it to 2 things. You had mentioned the classroom space and not being as concerned with the SIP and that method, but then also brought up concerns in similar buildings about not being able to use the hall, not being able to ultimately use the hallways for the ductwork and having them in the classroom. So sort of on one hand concerned, and then on one hand, or not concerned, and on the other hand, that could very quickly turn.
Yeah.
If I could just, when we look at this timeline, putting the switching gear aside, right? Assuming that might ultimately turn into something with a deadline, but pre-running everything to have that final piece to get an extension, let's say for a few months from the state on that. We're trying to figure out how to have as minimal disruption in the classrooms and focus on a primarily summer and break schedule with swing space as little as possible. So where are you at on that? I mean, so as I'm looking at this, to some degree you're saying you think that you might be able to do that. What we are trying to avoid is classrooms where they've got them down for 3 months or something. Do you think that that's feasible? Do you have a plan in here?
Yes. I mean, if it's only going to be locked to just summers, it may take 3. If you tell me you're locked in, you're not touching anything.
Yeah, but with no extension, right?
But it's kind of, so one aspect the RFP talks about, you have to be done by December 1st of 24. We've already presented to you that the switchgear is not coming by then.
Yeah, so we take that out.
Yeah.
Assume that that's fine, they've approved that.
Right. So ultimately, we can present an alternative schedule. If you lock me into saying you're absolutely not going to do anything, not take a ceiling tile out.
No, I'm saying the difference is your examples in the photos are basically a functioning classroom with light and whatnot that came in after. That is not that disruptive to the students.
Agreed.
Telling the students that they have to move their classroom for 3 months. So your approach is summer and then some of the longer breaks, doing ceiling tiles and drop and things like that, so, fine, but still meeting the timeline, barring the approval of the extension of the switchgear.
Agreed, yes. However, there's also the caveat that we are showing second shift work during the school year. So we are going to go in there after hours with the crews, which we've done with Colorado Hills. We've done a lot of second shift work. We go in there and basically remove the ceiling tiles. We've got to make sure the space is cleaned up after. The next night we come in and maybe remove the grid and suspend the lights. This is all going to be done under the guidance of the building official and the fire marshal. Okay? So those are the areas we try, and the reason why you do this is because we want to see what's above these ceilings, because we're going to release
I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, based upon that, really, as we were looking at your timeline, you believe that
yes.
Even if we have to run ducts to just through not the corridor and across the classroom,
once the ceiling in the classroom is opened up, do that enabling work. The ductwork going into the classroom, we're gonna have ductwork in the classroom.
Okay.
I have that anyway.
Or generally said, I just wanted to hear that you.
Yeah, we thought we have.
There were Chuck and Riverfield, right? Riverfield, there was a phase when we would go in on a second shift and we would put in, I forgot if they were VRFs or vehicles, but we were able to get into some of those classrooms it, put something,
That's exactly, I know we're running short on time, you answered my,
but we are, these are totally different, two different things, the bank units.
Any other questions? Rob?
Yeah, two-part. How much of your work is second shift?
In terms of duration, we noted that on the schedule, we have about from January, it's called February 1st to as soon as
Just percentage-wise.
I'm gonna say probably 30%.
30%. Okay.
Yeah, 30 to 40%, because it enables, the rest of it is gonna be over the summer. And I kid you not, there's gonna be some second shifting over the summer.
Right.
To bring in all that volume of work to put in.
Yep. And what does that do to costs? What's the percentage-wise by running second shifts?
It's really for us, we'll have.
For yourselves.
You know, ourselves, second shift will put some cost on them because there's a differential for them.
Right.
There's typically, somewhere between 5 to 8% differential for them to be able to pay their guys the night. Ultimately, they own 40 hours, but there might be some second. This is not a PLA or a union project, so it's a little different. So again, it's an open shop, typically put a 5 to 8% differential on them.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Nope. Colliers?
No, I think good.
Actually, just one other. You had mentioned, back in minute one, exaggerating, swing space.
We mentioned swing space. We think there might be an opportunity at the middle school.
Oh, middle school.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there might be an opportunity there that we'd like to take advantage. That'll make it actually better for all of us.
Absolutely.
But until we get into the administration and yourself as the building committee, we need to peel that on you, get a little bit more understanding.
Elementary schools are a little bit rigid and strict on keeping kids in their classroom. Where we'll change classes during the day and throughout the day, we just don't need that.
Yeah, the share, teachers often share a classroom.
Yeah, I mean,
Good. David, you good? Good. Gentlemen, thank you much. Have a good weekend.
I still have my badge, so if you want to just.
Yeah.
Pleasure seeing you again. Take care, be well.
Fairfield View, huh?
Two summers in a row.
Wow.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. Yeah, 2 summers in a row.
Nice.
Rob.
I know, he has a cold.
He always has a cold.
Take care.
Turn the project orders down.
Not much difference between the two, except for cost.
I like their research prior going into the school. Everybody had the same advantage going into the school. Mark, do we know?
No.
Do we know if every...
In the CMR, it was one visit, you had 2 arranged.
It was offered to all 3 of them, like they didn't just reach out.
Offered to all the visitors.
Yes.
Any input, Dave? Good.
Timeline questions better.
I like their approach to that. They went in there because we specifically said you got to think December 1st as your deadline.
Yeah, and knowing the way the county is about, knowing the way the county is around disruption It wasn't, they didn't take the, we're gonna go stage.
Hold on.
That's my fault. Don't worry. Sorry about that.
Twice, like, that's right, but that's just like a non-starter, don't even put on a piece of paper. And they get institutional knowledge here in the town that guys up to, kind of attempt that.
What it sounded to me like they were saying kids are in the classroom, so there's no big deal and it's less disruptive and less costly than moving everybody. Is that the that's the way that I understood it? Yeah, did I know?
Nighttime, come in the next night and add stuff. Also, if we can do mostly corridors, things like that, and not, then we're talking much less in the classrooms anyway.
The question that's come up to me is, what's the value of the experience that they have in the learning curve?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but there's a value.
Well,
They
saw basically these buildings over and over again.
Our building officials, fire marshals are over there. I'll say they're tough, right? They have to do their job like here.
You're diligent.
Definitely a little more. They're tough. A little bit tough here, in a good way. They know that. They know what they can do, what they can't do. There's a learning curve.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, these guys, they're all professional contractors, and they've been around the block. And I mean, I did not like their approach to the coordination with the architect. It seemed to be a little muddled there, and
because their VDC is extra.
I'm sorry?
In their proposal, that's an ad service for VDC.
It's an ad service.
That's why I asked, and I'm like, is it included? I heard yes. From Downs.
From Downs, it's included.
That's what I heard.
That's included. With them, it's not.
So that's, you're probably talking about $30,000-$40,000 in that.
Yeah, at least. Second shift work is going to add at least 10% onto the cost.
That's a great cost, no matter what.
No, I agree.
Because we, can do that, yeah.
But they're also, whatever the number was, but it's $300,000 to $500,000 more.
It's a great cost you're not getting.
That's and is their experience and whatnot in the town worth $500,000?
That's the question.
And I question that.
Well, I think they're the 275. That's got to come down. Nobody gets 275. I'm saying.
No,
you're lucky you get over 2.
If we're in the position now, we can't go back and say you got to lower your cost if you want.
Yeah, you can. You can negotiate with these guys as a professional service. That's negotiable.
That is.
It's up to you whether you want to or not. That's
you can't negotiate a GMP, but you can.
No, you can negotiate hours. You can do that.
I don't know what the town regulations are. I don't know.
Yeah.
We would have to. We would have to ask purchasing.
Yeah.
Thanks, right there.
Is it legal? She's sleeping. Can we negotiate? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because this is a professional service versus a bid.
So, but in order to do that, we have to go back to both.
Right, because it doesn't have to, we don't have to go with low bid, because.
It's best size, quality-based selection, and you just have to be able to justify it for a select.
But you got to justify it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to the disruption of the richness of what the DOE and stuff want, and the fact that I think I like the way Downs approaches, but when it comes to that swing space, almost sounds like they can't get it done by the deadline without the swing space.
That's correct.
Whereas this one sounds like, hey, we don't need the swing spaces. If we get in the middle school, that's great, but we can get it done without the swing space and less disruption to the kids.
They both could take the approach, but we give them like 10 different opportunities to come up with less, but still in the classroom,
right?
Pre-layout.
But that doesn't have another project exact on going to it's $20,000. That's about a half a day, about 4 hours per month.
I'm sorry.
So Downs, they had $20,000 for the project exact. Yeah. You take it over the 12 months, that's about 4 hours a month.
For the exact.
I calculate. I mean, you're talking about $1,500 a month. Okay. What's it? 6 hours, maybe 6 hours a month.
Did Downs say they would have a separate project manager for each location?
1 p.m.
No,
Superintendent.
They're trying to get the number in low and make it workable, so they're.
They know what they're up against coming in.
Yeah, no, so they're, so in the end, even if they'll plan on time, they're just showing them the numbers to try. That person's been spending time on it, but.
Oh, yeah, I do the same thing. I can give you my true hours I work on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Reasonable. I'm getting honest about it. Like,
I watch it somewhere else all day when I see why, like, it's like, just like the first one, like, 100 things, you go, great. It's my hours back, but I'm still
I
working.
need him on site, not me.
You ready for the next
But
one?
dogs are juggling.
Yeah. You ready for the next one?
Yeah,
Ready?
he's ready.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Balance.
How's you doing? How you doing?
Going.
We were joking, you know, the in and out thing, we felt like that. It's like ice and pickers. Call them a timeout, send them out.
All right, you guys have 30 minutes. Nancy's going to let you know at 5 minutes when you guys are up. We are running 6 minutes over, so you also get an additional 6 minutes if you need it, whether it's for question and answer or you got to continue your presentation. All right?
I said today was more interesting to the PowerPoint, but, you know, I kind of want to get right to those questions you guys highlighted. I think that's the best way to do it for us.
Are we starting?
Yep.
Starting? Okay, I'll let you know. Dude, this is my lunch hour. Okay. Rich, take out.
So for us, like I said, the questions kind of make it easier because we know what you guys are looking for and help us iron out what you need. My plan question sheet. Let's do that. We got a couple. First one was, I'm Greg Rickey from Bismarck. I'm a project staff manager. I'm Brandon Thomas, project manager.
Carl
I'm Sean Tomasco, field superintendent. Yeah. So today, I checked Mike was originally in our proposal. He's away, but I did have Sean on the Victor Woods project. So his great scheme of what we do as a whole with superintendents to speak for today. But let's get right to the question. Do you feel the overall schedule and RFP adequate for the size and scope of the project? If not, please provide a realistic schedule and update the associated fee. First and foremost, with the schedule, first thing you have to do is talk to the hygienist. What can you do? He's going to be the driver of this, and the hygienist is the abatement. Because without knowing that intangible, I can't drive the project. There are things I would like to say, hey, I can get done right now for you. Weeks off and done 10-day notifications at other schools. But without having his report, you know, I can't project where the HVAC project will go as a whole. I tried today to put together what I see starting in February with the bidding process. But as we know, pre-con starts as soon as this project's awarded. And with that going on through December, you know, is everything achievable? Yes, but there's going to be things that need to be done, whether it's fixed-based, working within the schools, and working in and outside the school. So I did kind of do an update with our fee, and I'll pass this out to who's taking it for that. Yeah, so the next one here we had was, what is your view and challenges and the opportunities on this project? Well, one, I know you guys said that no work is going to be done, completed during the academic school year. There needs to be work done during the occupied school year, whether it's doing our investigation, the risk management and remediation concerns, you know, possibly earlier packages if the hygienist allows that and working within the school system, and processing those 10-day notifications. Another item that we saw as a challenge, whether it's a conversation between us and you guys, is do we put out multiple packages with one for each school or one contractor for all three? I think the size you really are going to have to get Fairfield Woods just the one HVAC contractor, and the other two maybe you compare, but those are different opportunities that we can look at together. Just for the sheer size, you're really gonna have to go with one of those, breaking the package up. You know, even if you do get one contractor that says he can fit it all in that time frame, it's tight. Not only is it tight, you're gonna pay the premium, I feel. I did highlight this last one here was, how do you manage and control construction schedule? Often this is updated, how do you handle slippage? I'm gonna let Brandon talk to it. We do update schedules all the time, but you just wanna.
Yeah, so like Greg just mentioned, obviously we, you know, from the award of the project, we go through develop, pre-construction, procurement, and construction schedule. Typically our construction schedules are updated monthly, and that's based on the progress of the project on the site. We also have the ability to provide cash flow reports indicating the anticipated cost flow with the baseline schedule, and monthly updates with billings indicating the current status of the project as we move forward. Evaluating deviations in this manner help identify over and under billings, which give a good indication of the status of the project, how things are progressing. And our subcontractor contracts under Article 3, which Greg has with them as well, are specifically directed towards maintaining schedules on our end as well as our sub. And during the procurement, you know, getting a good understanding of the apparent leaders, experience and capabilities for specific types of work. This is a lot of basic stuff. In regards to slippage, you know, we typically forecast upcoming tasks on a 2-week, 1-month, and 2-month basis, and we can identify potential areas of concern that might impact schedule slippage based off of those. Identifying long lead items, which are definitely going to be major for this. Critical schedule tasks and overall coordination are consistently advised as we progress through the job. We also have bid coordination. It's performs work out any potential conflicts between MEP, trades ahead of them arising in the field, which are typically what we call our smart delivery. When unforeseen items arise, we evaluate the risk, develop a corrective action strategy. We bring our subcontractors into those conversations, and therefore we're better to streamline the implementation for the corrective work.
You know, these are answers, you know, I imagine all your contractors that came in today and given. But, you know, for us, it always is a conversation at the table with those subcontractors to develop that schedule, because their input is paramount to where we're going to go, because we have to work as a team, whether it's us and contractors in the field. That's how we get it done and deliver a highly managed projects. Because nobody ever wants to go into he said, she said with the litigation. It just doesn't work. And the best thing is relationships and communication that we hold throughout the project. 4 is primary games construction of occupied schools. So Bismarck as a whole, we've been together for 40 years. Me, myself, I've been doing this for 20. Brandon and Sean have been with me on a project. I'm trying to think when we started on our team that we've been together, but it was like 18, 19. We did Stanford mold projects. City of Stanford gave us a call. I took on 6 schools, which is never good logistics, bouncing around, and we put a project engineer on a couple projects, and Sean bounced around through 3 of them. It ended up being a lot of evaluation and cleanup. One school in particular was Stark Elementary. We renovated the whole school through the whole year and kept the students in there. So one thing we did was come up with temporary classrooms at the auditorium was one, and the other location was the media center. And obviously you're going to have to review your principals and your staff, and I know it's not Fairfield parents are going to have their input too, but when you're able to get things done in 2-week time frames, like each classroom we take a block of 3 classes at a time, 2 weeks, and we bang it out in 2 weeks, which was huge. And then we had the summer push where we did the whole first floor. That was another great tactic that we were able to do. But again, it comes down to communication and talking to principals, the parents, whoever it may be. Another project that I just want to highlight that we all worked together on was down in Stanford. Westfield has a high school, has a pool on the basement level, which is below, I think, 40 feet below the school, basically. And we had to do early procurement. So us and our relationships, we bought the unit early, and then we put it into a bid package,
passing everything to the subcontractor. And the warranty, everybody always worries about the warranty. Well, who's buying it? If they buy it, the warranty stays with the unit. So whoever buys the unit doesn't own the warranty. And that was another piece we were able to implement. And that project specifically, I think we put that whole unit, whole new penthouse at Westville High School in 4 weeks' time. And then we were reusing the existing ductwork in this space. But during the school year, we did night shifts where we were able to clean all the ductwork. So every morning, every night, we did checks. We'd come in at 3 o'clock when the kids left the building. We'd take on a zone, and we'd clean that entire zone. And at that night, we'd mark it out each day with the engineers spotting exactly where we were, cutting into the ductwork, cleaning it, and then coming back. And then the next day, we'd clean. And the important thing for us that, because night shifts and communication was getting our daily reports, we almost did partially with the town. They had us do it on Google Docs. Yes. Because they kept everything so transparent through the community, which really puts pressure on when you have a parent saying, hey, my son's room cleaned by X amount of dates. And that's what we're coming to there. These are just a couple of projects I want to highlight. The last one was Dunbar Elementary in Bridgeport. It was an HVAC project. We did most of the HVAC work during that summer and got the units on, rooftops, steel in, but we had to wait for the VAV boxes. So during the school year, we came in nights, installed VAV boxes, which controls each room's temperature, and we skipped through that at night. And I think if I remember, Columbus Day, I worked almost on the school holidays. But just a couple. What is your most concerning construction logistics issue? I was going to have Sean just highlight on what we do working within occupied spaces. Sean, right now, we've wrapped up a lot of school projects, and he's working in a hospital. There's no more critical occupied space than in the hospital, and that's what Sean's working on right now. So I just want to give you a highlight image of what we do within those spaces.
So typically, we would set up a temporary break barrier with air filtration or negative air machine inside it. We do it various different types of barriers depending on the area we're working. Then we were using an Edge-Guard panel, which is like an aluminum adjustable plastic panel, fire rated. It has a nice look to it, better than what you see just a plastic with bolts. And it keeps people in and out. In a school setting, I would recommend using this. When we set up our barriers, we'll bring in a hygienist to do any kind of testing for mold, maybe in the base or in the duct, and we would come up with a plan to take care of it moving forward.
The other thing that we've done on other projects and adding an air quality control plan, and that makes somebody responsible. And when someone is responsible on an air quality control plan, they're held to that plan. And hygienists that I've worked with in the past be able to implement that within the system. And, so the other logistic concern we saw is, you're managing 3 schools, and you have a project engineer sitting on each project. That's why our team kind of reflects that. I think you need that. It ends up being your voice. You can't keep reiterating this enough. Communication is so important in your team, and you guys are going to want to know detailed information also. Number 6, says provide examples and provisions of your firm's subcontractor agreement to ensure compliance with the schedule. So I just brought our contract here, and I highlighted it saying, subcontractors, suppliers perform so that the entire project may be completed in accordance with the contract documents, and then it highlights our completion date, our schedule of responsibilities, our project schedule. So I'll hand this over to you guys. I think it's more of I can talk about it, but in our material, if anybody wants to look at that. 7, provide experience identifying tracking long lead items to impact the schedule. So we work with equipment vendors. I'm currently a vendor right now for Trane. We just went through the rigmarole of signing all those docs, and it's just because we've done some really procurement in the past. The timeline for the staffing chart, and this is why we were looking into the pre-purchase within our pre-con. One thing, I was thinking about Osage, if they have to approve
pre-procurement, have you seen that before? For OCGR? Yeah. Yeah. Would they be okay with procurement early? And then I saw like percentages, I said, well, really maybe the town could pay for early procurement on a unit, just with lead times right now. And Brandon being the electrical engineer, and saying, what are you worried about the rooftop units? How about the?
Yeah, that's like going through, we noticed, power distribution upgrades and things like that. And even recently on projects, UI-related involvement and equipment, electrical equipment, transformers, panels, those typically are what we're really seeing issues with lead times. So when it relates to the early procurement, not just on the HVAC equipment, but also looking into the electrical aspect as well.
So I think one question can answer question 8 and 9, and most of it. Can this be done by December 1st? That's the deadline we have to hit.
I would love to say yes to you right now without a doubt, but it really depends on the design. I saw VRF was in this project, and I'm a mechanical engineer by background. I don't, VRF, I just was curious why you guys left the VRF system. I know it expedites things, it makes it go a little faster, but the VRF currently, their lifespan is 10 years at times, because it's running 24/7 typically. Not only that, they're doing a refrigerant changeover on 2024, where then the refrigerant's actually flammable. So do you want to put that in the school with the VRF? That was another thing I kind of saw. It's just something to look into. But these are things because my engineering background, I see it coming out every day. I'm working with the school system right now, and they veered away from the VRF. But, it all depends on the design, what's going to be capable of being done. So I think I get trunk lines in, say you get an early bid, and we get the trunk lines in the hallways, and then we're stubbing out throughout into December off of that main. As long as I'm able to get those main corridors down, I think you're going to have a good shot at this. Taking down the ceiling, you're going to have to work with your principals. I've worked in multiple school systems. Yes, they're ripping off the Band-Aid of dropping ceilings and leaving it exposed. You talk to the fire marshal, but it's a short time, 6 months. We keep everybody on fire watch. We do certain things to implement that. I know a couple of the schools are not sprinkled, am I correct?
Angels?
Correct. And so there's different precautions you end up doing there. But, there's also moving of heads and what you're going to have to do at those certain locations. We've done heat detection throughout that you can carry, which helps because you're going to have no ceiling. And that's the only way you're going to be able to get that aspect done.
Have you guys been able to get into the 3 schools that?
I have been in Fairfield Woods, I've been in Osborne, and I didn't get the bid in 2009, I think that one. And then I have not been in Stratford. I've been in Jennings and Youngville. That's not on the list
What, you mentioned OCGR. How many schools have you executed under that?
I was just talking to him before. The last one was we were wrapping up Central High School, Bridgeport. I ended up doing all the closeout documents, and the picnic, working with I call it hostage, and putting that together is getting all the change orders together, getting it all documented. And we're not ever taking the lead on OCG. It's usually following our engineer providing all that information.
About 16 reviews, like with those.
Yeah, no picnic. Yeah, we're doing. I'm not on that project right now, Bassett, but at Central High School, we were cleaning all those things up.
What's your plan to?
You have how many?
Currently, me personally, I was on Central High School as one of them.
So you guys worked with them in the last 5 years?
Yeah, actually working at Bassett right now.
Okay.
Bassett High School we're doing, and
what kind of project's that one?
Brand new.
That's a new school.
For that, brand new project coming out of the ground. Baseball, Bridgeport.
Okay.
Coordination plan.
How do we implement? So we have a coordination meeting with our subcontractors. So here you're going to have.
Well, let's be a little more specific. During the DD's SD CD phase with the architects, your coordination, their coordination, how does that translate?
So typically, just going back to other projects we've done, we sit with the architects and we kind of walk through to be completed at timelines, because you guys can provide a timeline to the engineers and architects, but we're going to be right there supporting you guys, because as much as you might push the architects and engineer team, we want to push them also. So we coordinate and go through the DD phase and all phases, budgets at every level, and that's the numbers that we try to stick to. And we look for areas we're so in depth in terms of county, particularly, with really good pulse on the projects. Bastick High School, we just went out for bid in Bridgeport. I think the budget was $103 million. I think we came in at $102 was our budget. Our budget was $103. The project came in at $102. So, we were pretty excited about that. That's less than 1%. So that's a good dictator of who we are on the budget.
Okay. Now, your MEP coordination, these schools are older.
Yeah.
So you're putting 5 pounds of, I won't say the word, crap into a 2-pound bucket.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to minimize the conflicts?
That's a good question because when I'm trying to think, I'm going back to another old school we worked at. It was built in 1901. And the biggest headache that we had with MEP coordination was just even fastening to the plastic ceilings. It was hot, so every time you had to do glove bags for abatement at times, and being the old school, weaving throughout the space, there is going to be some framing involved, whether it's lintels at masonry openings and cutting through the main gut line. We have worked with them here in different projects, which is the modeling system, show flashes. I don't think you're going to be able to do that if you're not a new build, and it's so old, and send even what they have latest technologies to send. I know one of my competitors will say, we'll send a robot in or the drone and say you're going to know every flash. They will not. So it really comes back to us and working around the table to figure out those problems.
Okay.
Solutions.
David? Okay. Go ahead. You can continue, I guess.
Yeah, no, I was just reading if I had anything else here on the government issue versus, this is just highlights that we put in our bid package. A few things that we did on top of this today was procurement schedule. So, I didn't know there was going to be, I thought there was a couple less here, so I thought we'd always sit at the same table. But, I did want to highlight kind of where you were going here with these projects. And I don't mean like what you want to take on first, but just reiterating all the trades that you're going to have here, talking coordination, healing, abatement, lighting, whether it's VRF or not, which way you're going here. I think you can have some direct air. And that's another one I just want to highlight. And if you're going to this direct air, these units can be large. So really you want to even get steel package out there earlier than later. Because you can secure that steel, you can throw that up on a break. Because when you're doing steel, if everything's fabbed and it works to the dimension, you can take advantage of that April break or that Christmas break. There's different breaks that you can take advantage of. And like I said, the abatement, we did a lot of abatement at a couple schools during the school years. And it's working with that hygienist and the abatement contractor to get those 10-day notifications in to get the work done in a timely manner. Sure, I can sit there with the hygienist the night before to open up, but we passed that clearance and All Angels number on speed up.
And you worked with Colliers before, correct, on other projects?
I think Colliers, I don't think his department, but we've worked with them on projects actually for Stanford Health. I think you guys have a lot of projects down there. And actually, Yale New England, a couple of Colliers projects we worked on.
Might be a different group.
Different group, yeah, different team. Okay. And then, we already heard Brandon. Yes, we were going over this morning. Nothing like a short put together. When did we get this call? Wednesday? Yeah, but time is of the end. Let's go. So, we got together this morning, did our coffee run, right?
And just curious on the mechanical
yes.
system. You mentioned your kind of question here.
Yes.
What system would have to be a mechanical background?
Yeah, I me personally, I know VRF is the hot, and I think you actually get big rebates right now. It's like, say, I just put a project out. It was $3 million for the HVAC. The credit on the $3 million was $450,000. I brought it to the owner and I said, hey, what do you guys want to do here? And it took them 2 weeks to decide, but what made them not choose it with longevity is, I think you really need to know the half-life of what the VRF is. You know, like today, in everybody's home, they have a condenser for their air conditioning. In Florida, it only lasts 10 months, or 10 years, because it's running constantly. In Connecticut, it lasts 20 years. So these VRF systems run 24/7. They're constantly running. But, you know, that's a conversation, I don't know who's from BL.
No, yeah.
Okay. So, you know, that's the only thing I have a quick question. I really think what I did at Dunbar Elementary School in Bridgeport was run the main truck lines with VAVs off it. That's one thing I see, but, you know, it all depends what's available within the space that you're given.
Any other questions from Colliers, board members? Building committee? We're good?
I'm good.
All right. Have anything else?
I'm looking for, let me see my last file here. I took, you know, all these notes you had me take the last first 2 days here. Hold on. Okay, see the area. Brandon, I can't add to this more about electrical lead items. I think I'm waiting for a panel. What is it? And what did UI say to us?
Yeah, it was 12 months just for 0-3.
12 months with the UI. Or UI territory, just getting that on. Early procurement, getting it started early is the best option. But I will pass on the information regarding fees and where we're going up a little bit. But I don't see it any other way starting earlier with this project.
Thank you much, gentlemen. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you know, it's lunch and I'm kicking the guys home. That's it for that. I cooked them here for 2 days. Oh, I did.
Need a list of questions, or you have that?
Oh, I have it, thank you.
Anybody else need a list of questions?
I'm good for either. Question, I think it's like
Was it doing it affordable?
well, usually it depends on how the interviews go. You're like, hey, we get for half, what we get.
Yeah. Well, you know, I gotta tell you, I was a little weird when I'm reading budgets and everything's just still waiting on this. And I said, Mark never does school, he's in hospital, so what's he doing here? I don't know, I feel like I didn't see him on, does he now? I only worked with him on,
Yeah. No.
is he big in the school now? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He did more things at the school the last couple of years.
I don't blame him getting out of the hospital.
We've got a group relative, a bunch of those.
Oh, okay. Well, again, pleasure meeting you guys.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Chuck, you close that door.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, even if I don't get the project, I hope you get some fun tidbits here.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You know, my sister had to say to me for that, she goes, how much was that? They went to my school.
Which one's our
That's your.
Oh, thanks.
Take
Have a
care.
good one.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Didn't want to little this one, they were here. All right, we'll record.
I give them, they know, so let's discuss, Downs and Gilbane. Where do we as a committee stand as far as our thoughts and
I bring So Dave Gilbane,
Yeah, last time
but so both of them are at a higher number anyway, so we'll keep that. But I'm leaving Gilbane, I was leaving them last week, but in hearing down a lot of ways through, I wanted to like them as the option, but we kept not getting where Gilbane came head on timeline. Overall approach, ability to do it, I mean, it's obviously qualifying, and not, still ranking as 3 at Bismarck, so a whole bunch of questions I have on URS and all that. They're not like,
the main thing is the high depths and hazmat. I'm like, are you kidding me?
They were selling gold and hazmat.
I'm not saying I'm boring, but you totally missed the mark now.
I think they I give them a lot of credit for coming in. I know, they could easily said, we'll sit this one out.
Yeah, no, but what I was saying is, you did, yes, still 3, those things sucked them right over the 3, 4, maybe 4. But we don't have to do this now, but with either of them, there's, I guess but he raised a whole ton of questions that I just want to say that nobody else raised. And it might be that he's off on whatever, plane dealing with it, but, so we can talk about that subsequently, I guess, but he raised a ton of different things in there. Maybe that was on purpose.
I don't like that how it's nobody's fault. Not their fault already, but it's the playing games already. It's, I don't know why they did this, I don't know why they did this, can't do anything without the design.
This Bismarck 7.
Yeah. Let's narrow it down. We have down. We have.
No, what I'm saying is I'd like to get. I'm more saying is the years that I was going to I would really like to know all the things he brought up because he threw a ton of stuff at the end that I went. I really hope that he wrong. But on there, to me, it's Gilbane. They just right out of the on the timeline stuff. They walk through only. I do agree that there's you can't do this, completely not involved in the classrooms and whatnot. But they've got the approach. They've got the track record. I think could you go to Downs and probably stay? By the way, here's exactly what we got out of that meeting. That's exactly how I want to go and do it. But we gave them I must have given them 4 or 5 attempts. And the closest I got was Jason coming up at the end of the window to me, but he was answering it better, but he was still not answering it, and we kept walking through.
Answering what?
The timeline and not doing this massive phasing, moving, plan, which it's the my book, that's a non-starter.
Can I ask you a question though? So how, and Jason, you were making points, to them, to the first people about, disruption and everything. But this, just so everybody knows, and the board knows, this is going to be very disruptive. The board, and I think, as you said, kids are resilient. So all I would say is, don't throw out the ideas of work being done in a way that's going to disrupt this, because the schools already know this. The building principals are going to work with that, so it's like, I would hate for you to make any decisions, and I'm not saying I think I know which direction you're going in, but just
I think
don't throw out an idea that, you know what I mean?
I like the guy to down. If I just 3 people sitting in front of me, yeah. I actually.
But I missed the Gilbane. So what was Gilbane proposing?
Gilbane automatically with some open ceilings. They understand because of the other projects that did in town. They didn't touch swing space at all in the 2 elementary schools. just the middle school, just because they know the kids' schedules and stuff.
Yeah.
So the only swing space I think will give Bain is gonna be in the middle school.
Which is a whole different.
So when are they doing second and third shift work?
They're doing second shift.
Second shift.
Second shift
And
work,
taking
which
advantage.
increases the cost of the projects by 10%, thereabouts. We're tight already with money. They're $500,000 more than Downs, and they're proposing the same thing without swing states.
I don't know how you do it without the swing space, that's all I'm saying.
I think you'll see, I mean, I've done this stuff many times, and doing second shift, and you can dispute me, it's inefficient. Tend to get the workers that are not all that efficient. I know we're holding them to schedules and whatnot. Still, there's a efficiency issue, there's a cost issue, and if we don't care about cost, then let's go for it. But, you know, somebody's gonna have to come back and rectify this with the BOS.
So there's two different approaches, but realistically with either one of the vendors. We can try that. We can try
an approach with different work times.
One second and one's pushing second shift, one's not, so there's a cost. Right. But if we want to go to Downs and say, well, we prefer to be an approach with second, at the end of the day, we could probably lay out how to do it. They're coming out of the gate saying, we don't think that that's.
And then, you know, again, what they said too was, you know, this is our first blush. We gave it to them Wednesday. Absolutely. I mean, this is just an interview.
Well, and David's point, though, Dave, you made a good point in there about, like, doing all the work and just not the last part, you know, doing that when the equipment comes in, so to try and revise the timeline.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what Gil Bain thought about their, I mean, it's October of 25.
And December 1st.
I mean, they're both right saying the same thing about the switching. They're ordered as soon as possible, and you know, second to get it over as soon as possible, and know that, you know, that as soon as you know, that you're probably looking at, although we talked last week about break, but you could be looking at, summer of 25.
So the grant completion, if granted the extension in October of 25, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the majority of the work and the majority of the money is spent,
well, that's a wild card too. So say you're going to October, 25, and you're actually putting your switching in over. Are they going, because the switching is delayed, they give you the okay, and unknown, right, is, do we then say, oh, we're going to spread the whole project over 2 summers? Do they come around and go, no, you want all that done on that timeline, even if it's ridiculous, and you've been granted an extension for that component to be installed at that time,
right? We don't get the grant money until the project's complete, right?
Correct.
Even with this grant.
Correct.
But that's not it. That's the
No. I'm not worried about that, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, you can't sign off on it until that very, very tail end and then the whole project. But I wonder if they come back and they give you the extension but they still want everything else based on full steam ahead. Because you're making to get the extension, you've got to make the argument all the way through.
But I don't know why
everything you can to meet.
I don't know why we would.
Well, everyone's saying 1 summer would be great.
Well, here's what my understanding is, and they're going to clarify up in Hartford, is we can't do anything now until we can definitely tell the state, hey, there's a delay, and would generally show, like, we have to go order it, they get the invoice back, and we have to submit that. We can't just say even though the entire industry knows it's a year out, right? We actually have to tell the state, and then the state comes back and says, okay, we can extend it.
But there's supply chain issues. I mean, we're hyper focused on the switchgear, but VFDs, that's also out. So what we need to do is we need to sit down with VL and whoever the contractor is ASAP and get those lead items so that we can put a package together and say, this is why this is going to be late. we can't make that December 1st deadline because
Correct.
of A, B, C, D.
But we were talking, I mean, some of those items are 30 weeks out, which means
Well,
Yeah, well, the
now,
RTUs are different.
Right.
But the VFDs can be 6 to 8 months out.
does
so
it,
that's next summer. Right.
does it
Well,
sound,
it depends on the order.
Yeah.
does
Anyway,
it,
our time, yeah.
does it
Well, this is
sound
already
that,
then, it's like September, October.
does it sound that Downs, the one thing I like about Gilbane, they said the minute they do it, the minute kids are out, the product's in the school already, like ready to go, we know what we need to do.
That's any contract.
So Downs, we can expect the same. That's what my thought is. What's
I
the,
mean, we won't get into means and methods with them, but I would assume, yes, that's what would happen. That's the way I would run my job site. I would have all the materials on site.
what,
Ready to go.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question. Did Gilbane mention anything about doing like, the 3D modeling, like?
they did not.
It's an ad service.
Yeah. I know it's an ad service for them too. It's not included in their base price.
They can do it. I mean, Ginger Chico is amazing. I mean, she's one of the best agencies.
Well, is that important to you? To just get Gil, because at the end of the day, you're the ones, right? We just meet once.
What
something
they
and then
talk
update.
for is the quality of the documents, the bids when they go out to bid for clash detection, they ensure it's vitally, it's quality control, it's a highly bid document. I did a 1936 barracks building at West Point, and we did the old-fashioned way for coordination, paper and triangle and pencil. And it was a freaking disaster until we got BIM in and we started to do it. And you could see the conflicts right away. It was amazing. So it's vitally important, especially with these older schools, that we do the upfront work. And part of that is doing either LiDAR or something similar. I don't know what he was talking about with the...
If you do it during the construction, you can pull that ductwork submittal approval shop drawing, that shop drawing process with ductwork back. Instead of taking 3 months, you can get it, so you're pulling the end date back also, except for the switch. And just the swing space, the second shift versus swing space, that it's swing space also got
you're adding cost to it as well.
That's not going in the building.
But, and we're talking about, and I didn't mean to...
No. My only other point would be, who would you want to be working with? Just, I know it's a 30-minute interview, but you're going to be with them for the next 18 months. Who would you, basically, who did you get along with? Who do you think you can work with to produce the product?
I mean, we're also talking quality of life for the kids, having the ceiling open. Probably not the best thing in the world. I don't know. They are resilient. Kids are resilient. But I mean, if you're going to have swing space and you're going to have finish, it's like walking into a classroom at a school building. That might be something to consider as well.
I'll tell you too, Gilbane didn't mention swing space. You said in there.
No, they did. They did
for the middle school, but not the elementary school. But part of that may be their experience with the district and familiar with the schools. Like North Stratfield, I'm sure they're aware because they've been in that building for other projects. There's probably 3 or 4 classrooms that could be identified as swing space without needing to build an actual swing space out to create, we can move art into a mobile art.
But they didn't say that.
They didn't say.
It's not in their schedule.
Well, they were focused more, but it goes back, we asked for the timeline, and they were focusing more on second students approaches.
Yeah.
They were focusing on second shift, the other one was focusing on swing space. So, are we looking at and saying, well, we're gonna go based on their proposal specifically, or we prefer this team and they can meet the objective, or either one of them. We could turn around and say go second shift to Downs, and we could turn around and go swing space to Gilbane. Because to your point, we're gonna live with this team for the next.
Are we as a committee, if take price out of it, based on what we know, what we heard, and what we've seen, are we both happy with Downs or Gilbane?
Yeah.
Right, on both?
Either.
Okay, so
I was just gonna say, one of the critical components we've been noticing here that we've experienced between these two, I haven't worked with that specific down group. I mean, Tom's managing other projects with my team that I don't really want on that site, frankly speaking, I took it over. But my experience with Downs in East Hampton High School, we finished back in 17 or 18, the Gilbane's safety and cleanliness on the site is far better. Their attention, and I'm not saying Downs isn't safe, I'm just saying Gilbane's attention. We've seen when you walk through their projects how meticulous they are. This job is going to be vital for them. It's not something you can necessarily put a cost on, but Gilbane's safety elevation, and Mark can speak to it too, because you've seen it more down here, is better than Downs in my professional opinion.
If I ever correct, they were also going to put specifics on pending fences, so that's part of what they were planning.
I think Downs.
I thought Downs said that they were going to, there might be some split.
I think that they could look at that.
No, that was, well, at the end. But they were willing to.
Oh, that's right, they cut back the hours and split it.
That's right. Yeah, they had them listed, but then they said they.
That's right.
So that's what
They cut that.
But, okay.
Any changes
Yeah, no,
with
looking
the,
at renamed, but then they said.
any changes to the
Yeah,
adjustment?
so, and I just did this quickly and we want to just double check, but they reduced their fee amount. It was previously based on 2.75%. They reduced that down to 2.25%. Where do you see that? Well, what it is, I calculated on page 7. So they just didn't. I just did the ratio of the 510,782 divided by the 624 is about 80% of it. So I just did the calculated amount 2.25. There, and then their general conditions, they modified. They reduced some of the PX staff, put them in the general superintendent. They basically squeezed up their hours a bit and reduced their labor by over $217,000 total there. So their general conditions came down a bit. So you know their GCs are very close. You know, we say that analysis, we look at how much trade cost can we get at the end of the day, the GFA doesn't kind of back in. It's about $200,000 difference roughly on our calculations. So they're definitely, I think, closer within. I'd still recommend bringing that fee down, maybe to like a 2.1. Yeah. But they're you know, even at a 2.1, they're going to be more good. Oh yeah, it's still going to be more. Gilbane's never the cheapest. No. We're the same, but they understand that we're not the cheapest. So they're not sure. But you know that.
So, here's my question. Do we vote on vote to say we use Gilbane pending the change, the negotiation and services? Or do we vote to say we go with Gilbane and we go with Downs?
You vote one way or the other and then go into negotiation. Or what you do is you do the negotiation before you vote. Because once they got the job, they
can either, right?
Well, we've seen motion to award 2 pending successful negotiation for contract and leave it at that.
It's
so
got to go down to the fee.
Yeah.
First,
you still have to do the contract.
So if you're gonna vote, it's gonna be public, so.
No, we're not.
No, so if.
Are we
So
comfortable?
Even for that fee, they won't
vote. Are we, as a committee, comfortable we went one way or the other, or do you want to hold off the vote until we ask them to negotiate with either or?
May I give you the FOIA perspective?
Hold on, yeah.
The FOIA perspective would be that when a vote is public, and I don't believe what town clerk, what FOIA regulations want to see is a vote that is pending this or contingent upon this. For FOIA, from a FOIA and a public meeting perspective, the vote would be, the committee voted to return to Gilbane with an offer to sharpen their pencil, whatever you want to call it, and will make the final decision at a special meeting after that is it. You know what I mean? Just for the minutes. I mean, what? I'm kind of a rule follower now.
No, you should be. Rodney?
What?
Thoughts?
No, I agree that, I mean.
So, David, any thoughts?
You can go back to that. With that, please go back. That is what we did. Road purchasing.
Purchase and go back?
With support from Colliers, of course.
And it's really just asking to make the adjustment.
Well, what you do is you say, you know, this is your best and final. And if they say yes, then that's it. And maybe the back alley doesn't, yeah. That's above board work.
Timeline wise, we do a special.
I mean, we could do a special meeting by phone, because that's the one item that we're voting on.
You can go ahead and BOS meeting.
BOS would be July.
So we have time.
We have time.
So I mean,
we can meet next week.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can not necessarily cancel the next meeting.
So.
Sorry, I'm just summarizing for Adam. So you want to hold off now, negotiate with Gilbane.
Mm-hmm.
That will be in the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That you're holding off to sharpen more with them because they're the highest, and you want to make sure that they're the best and final. And
you want to say negotiate, give them a chance for the best and final.
And because it's an RFP,
you can do that because it's an RFP, correct.
And now what timeline, when do you want to make that decision?
We're just, like,
Mark's right.
For Friday, you're gonna have your meeting Friday?
we either have by next Friday, or do we want to have a special, are we confident if Gilbane comes back, sharpens the pencil, then we're happy with that. We can vote to say we'll move forward with Gilbane, or at that time, move forward with this, with Downs.
If they come down, and if they come down rather substantial, I would be on board with that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be on board. Just purely.
No, it makes.
Both contractors are
correct.
Are more than qualified to do the work.
Okay, next Board of Selectmen meeting is July 10th.
So we have time. So I'm going to make a motion on the floor that we ask Purchasing and Colliers to reach out to Gilbane to negotiate their fees. And then at that time, we will either hold a special meeting or do our meeting next week to vote on either Downs or Gilbane to be the construction management company. Do I have a second to that motion? Okay.
Do you want to move to reach back out to Gilbane, or do you want to move to reach back out to the construction companies in a specific way? For the public.
In all fairness,
You should reach
out to them all, right?
So let's reach out to both.
Not a voting member, just trying to get it.
No, that makes sense.
I thought about that.
No, that just recently happened with us, and they never reached back out to us, so I agree that.
Everybody should have this
Everyone,
level playing
okay,
field,
so
everybody should have the
let me
opportunity.
rephrase them. We're gonna make a motion to approach both Downs and Gilbane, with Colliers negotiating the final, price on this project. At that time, we will then either hold a special meeting or vote at our next scheduled meeting, to vote either Downs or Gilbane to be the construction management company.
Jason Lee moves that the committee reach back out to the top two contenders, Gilbane and Downs, for,
Final negotiations, final
to negotiate
best
a
best and final.
best and final,
best and
okay.
final.
For further negotiation of a best and final offer.
And we will either hold a special meeting or meet next week.
Well, there's no rush, so.
With
We'll vote at the next scheduled meeting.
decision to be voted upon at, all right, how does this sound?
And second,
Jason Lee moves that the committee reach back out to the top two contenders, Gilbane and Downs, for further negotiation of a best and final offer, with the decision to be voted upon at a subsequent meeting.
correct.
Good? Is that what you moved, Jason?
And then
Okay,
Rodney-
Jason so moved.
Ronnie seconded.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor? Aye.
Unanimous,
Opposed?
thank you.
All right, so moved. Item 7. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? David, all in favor?
I have David second now, okay.
All in favor?
Did.
Thank you.
And at,